You're listening to White Noise with your host, Drip, 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 Drip.
You know what? I always say welcome back, but if this is your first time listening to White Noise, welcome. I'm Drip, Davis, aka Drip. As always, I'm joined by khal, founder of Black Wrestling.
Welcome to White Noise.
Co-host and producer.
It look weird if you were holding this mic like this.
That's the thing. That's the same fun thing. Like, let me tell you something real quick about
That would look
Vince
weird.
McMahon. Like,
I don't know what situation. Shouts out to Blue when they're Yeti mics. I don't know what situation where you need to be holding that motherfucker close. Nah, leave that thing standing on the table like it's supposed to be.
yeah.
Or have it dangling.
Yeah, the dangling again. Like it'd be. It's like the boom. Like getting too close. Like.
Those like you just have to make sure the mic is good enough to pick up your whole because like
Exactly.
it's easier to have a microphone sitting in front of you because you're talking like this. If you're going to have something hanging up here, like you got to make sure. Anyway, this is all too.
I think I put it in one of the had to either be a Twitter video or maybe one of the best does where Math says something. He's like khal, and then you go what? You know, like I'm really there. Like it's a great moment between the two of you where you're like,
yeah.
I guess that you like, last week he was like khal, and you're like I'm right here. And he's like, oh, what the fuck?
that was a true story. What happened was, I'm sorry, we'll get to the show.
No, but I still love that moment because the fuck you sneaking up on me.
So, like you've never been to this spot, right?
No,
it's
because this is where it was last year, right?
Yeah, it was the same venue that Black WrestleFest was. Is where Black Girl Magic was last year. I believe Jobber Slam might have been there as well, but I think one of them had outside, and one of them I don't remember what was going on. But anyway, this is the street, right? You're at the street. It's not like a far walk. You literally walk up like a weirdly steep set of steps, and then like the chairs and the ring are right there. You feel me? Like when you come around the block, before you even park, you can just hear boom. Like, you know, the matches are going on. So Math, I didn't even know what Math had really going on. I just knew that he was going to the car. Now, what Math didn't know is I'm standing next to Chris Brown. I'm standing next to all these people. Fam's got his bag. You know, Chris Brown had a bottle. I didn't have a cup. So it's like, I need to get a cup because I know at some point I'm going to have to drink something. So I went back and I was like, Math is going to the car. Math's got the keys. My only chance to get in, if I'm going to get a cup right now, is right the fuck now. So I got to catch up with him because he's going right now. But he was already Math's a tall person. He was already descended down the steps.
I had said this.
He's a tall man.
Right after they picked me up in at the Jersey airport, we stopped to go to some small gas station.
Mm-hmm.
I got in the car with Gene Cena to go inside because I needed to get deodorant because my spray deodorant couldn't be allowed on.
You couldn't fly with it?
It was over like the limit of whatever.
Word.
So I had to get just regular like Old Spice deodorant stick, and Gene Cena gets out in front of me. Then Math gets out after, and I turn around and I look, and it's like when they first see Michael Keaton's Batman, and Batman like, oh my god, like,
oh man,
like I'm like, you tall as fuck, like
he's only got a couple of inches more than I do height wise, but it's like it's like he's like
I'm literally under the wing because it's
facts.
I can fit under that bitch, like as he would say.
But like a lot of that is leg, so he's already defended. So I'm trying to catch up, and
saying this man has Stacy Keebler legs is.
I mean, he's a tall individual.
She's from Baltimore, so hey,
there you go. There's just something in the water. Nah, but I also do admit that I have ninja like abilities. Like I don't make a lot of noise when I move, so I can understand, and I apologize. I do apologize because I mean, you know, you never know what could happen. You know, I've traveled with these cats before. anything could have happened. But I just wanted to let him know, I'm right here. Like, I'm just trying to get a cup. I just needed a cup because I knew I was going to get that. Nah, but that was
So like in the movie's like, don't do that. Like when they sneak up behind someone. Like,
I do remember. I thought I had said math, and he didn't hear.
You don't hear shit. Come on.
But again, it's like
he's
my
singing
voice
to the car. Da, 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 da,
I like on the podcast. On the podcast, I can be loud, especially when I'm drinking. But like my voice doesn't carry outside of being in a microphone like that. So, and there's wrestling going on. There's like 100-some people cheering.
I think Banks said this earlier that you have a low voice. Yeah,
my voice is low. No, my voice is low. I like when I have to be all up on. Like I can't. I don't. Like it's not part of.
Hey.
I can get loud, but I don't. You know what I'm saying? Like my voice can be kind of low, and I know that. So that's why I don't like. I wasn't trying to scream. Especially when like
a scene, yeah.
Stuff going on.
I probably would have scared you even worse. Then you would have like,
and then there would have been how many people behind me like, hey, what the hell's going on? We're just trying to watch some wrestling. So I didn't want to cause a scene, but I also knew that I like if I was going to get a cup, it was going to be right the fuck then. Yeah. And everybody was okay, so I made the right decision. But I do next time. I know to let Math know. Hey, I'm right. I am standing behind you.
You gotta do I'm on your 6. I mean, I'm on your left. I'm on your left from Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Math. I'm on your 6.
That too. You got to do that.
Yay, man. There wasn't a lot of yay math so far.
That was discussed on this past week's BRP. Salad Glizzy available on YouTube right now. Make sure you're subscribed, you're liking the videos, you're sharing all that. We had Rev Ron Hunt stop by for the cold open. We had Not That Chris Brown. My guy Black John Stead who'll be joining us sometime in the next few weeks.
Well, you said hold up, Rev Ron Hunt. He just won a title this weekend. I don't remember the name of the I feel
I can
bad.
Look it up real quick. Hang on.
I feel bad. It's I honestly just heard about it this morning, and I was just dope to see him have the photo.
The Renegade Wrestling Alliance.
Renegade. I knew it was something with an R. That's what's up. Congrats to him. He was literally just on the pod the other day. Actually, YouTube.com/Black Rats. I'm gonna be dropping a clip of him talking about being on Monday Night Raw recently, helping out Ezekiel. He was in a scene with Ezekiel, Kevin Owens, and Adam Pearce.
Yeah.
If you search up Ezekiel Raw Stretcher, which sounds crazy, Rev Ron Hunt's face is like on the YouTube thumbnail because he was the dude. I mean, he said it was his truck, so he was the dude that was getting him to safety. But it's dope to have
his ambulance.
It was his ambulance. That was. He did say ambulance. Yeah, that was a good one. It was fun. It was a fun episode. Hopefully, y'all can see. It's a long episode, but
it was. We've had long episodes before. This episode might not be that long. Next week's could be because I teased us at the end of last week's episode. This is episode 10, by the way, of White Noise.
Episode 10 of White Noise. Shouts out to y'all listening.
So like I said last week, I came up with this idea after listening to pods like The Big Picture, Quentin Tarantino's podcast, Video Archives, and kind of other movie podcasts in general. They talk about going to the movie theater, and with COVID throwing a wrench into movie theaters shutting down, not maybe coming back, streaming services taking off with putting new movies on there or directly on there. It kind of made me realize, I was one of those people like, streaming online, I prefer that compared to going to the theater. But I have kept track of the movies I've seen in theater, particularly since I moved here to Minnesota, which was in January of 2013. Prior to that, I had seen a few, growing up, my dad would take me to the movies. My mom as well. With my mom, we would rent movies a lot more often. But my dad, I remember summer of 2008, we saw Iron Man in the theater, The Dark Knight in the theater. My mom, we went and saw the fourth Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. We saw that in the theater, but really, it was not that often. The only movie I saw on my own prior to me moving here was Fast Five. I had my neighbor take me, who is also my mom's supplier. Shout out to him. Statute of the Limitations, I think, is passed, but he was a cool guy. He was actually a dope guy.
God damn, no pun intended.
Legit. He dropped me off and then picked me up because my mom didn't have a car anymore at that point. But yeah, Fast Five was the first movie I saw on my own. At that point, I was 16. Yeah, because it was 2011. I just turned 16 a few months prior.
Is that weird for you going to see a movie at 16 by yourself?
Yeah, that was the thing. My mom, I think anyone could kind of tell by the way I am at times. My mom was like one of those very like not strict but overprotective. I think that's why I have to. Yeah. In a good way. She's a mother.
My mom was overprotective. No, yeah. I don't know how far compared to your mother, but my mom was definitely overprotective in some aspects. Yeah.
And this thing is some of these movies like growing up that we'd rent, a lot of like shield your eyes, cover your ears type. At my dad's, it was a little bit more loose. He showed us the South Park movie, and then would do the like, don't tell your mom we watched this. Like
I had to. My son. I'm sorry to break up. My son literally, he's at like maybe season 5, episode 4, Breaking Bad. He's been watching Breaking Bad over the summer because he saw Gus Fring memes on TikTok, and I had to have the conversation because I'm like, yo, the show is like, I know he's watched, stuff. He's seen stuff like John Wick in theaters. You know what I mean? He's seen, watching Marvel stuff. You see violent stuff, but there are certain scenes in this show that are a lot more intense than what he's normally used to, and he's been fine with it. And he's learned that he's not doing any drugs at all after watching the show. I'm like, A+, but he's also like really appreciating. But you mentioned he's around that age, and I don't know if he's he probably would go by himself, but I don't know if he'd be ready to be in the theater by himself.
I was worried at that because again, my mom where I grew up, not the best place to grow up either. There's always that thing my mom about, I think it's installed like this worrywart tendency I have. It's funny, banks they called me like Piglet from Winnie the Pooh. I kind of oh dear, like I think I do have that at times. I think if she was looking out for me, my dad is saying he wouldn't just like, oh, go and do that by yourself, like nothing like that. And I think that's why the movies a lot of times we go see would be like family movies,
of course,
and stuff like that. So then like once I moved here, I turned 18 a month after moving here.
Right.
So I kind
of. Are we calling this Drip's movie journey? I'm sorry. I want to.
Well, that was the working title. If you want to play the video I sent you right before.
All right. Well, do you want to get into that? And do you want to play that now?
Yeah, play that now, and I'll kind of explain after.
All right. Bet. Let's go.
Movies, films, cinema.
Speaking of John Wick, so that's the thing. It's 2013 is where this starts because I have the tickets of almost all movies I had seen in the theater. These are what we'll be covering. So today we'll be covering 2013, 2014, and 2015. The movies I saw at that time. So movies, films, cinema is what we'll be calling the next 3 weeks of white noise. It is a journey in itself because I'll kind of detail where I was in my life a little bit. Which I guess will be very like, oh, this guy. But no, yeah, so like I said, 2013, I'm in a new state. Don't really know much about Minnesota. I'm experiencing snow for the first time. That's fucking weird. Brutal, to be honest. I almost wanted to move back 2 weeks after being here. My dad had been living here for a little bit. My grandmother moved here to be closer to him.
Right.
My dad
it's like being stone sober and just like shooting up heroin one day. Like, it's just a lot of snow to be dealing with.
No, believe me. Yeah. It was rough. It was brutal. My dad was engaged to who is now my stepmom. So yeah, there was a lot going on. But I came here for reasons. Needed a fresh start. Needed to get caught up and all that. So like I said, I turned 18. I'm in like this small town high school because it's the only place that could get me in right away. But I basically live and still do in the same town that I moved here, the suburbs basically of this area that's an hour away from the big cities. But the movies that were coming out in 2013, it was kind of really start. I had spent like the last few years really getting into movies. I was kind of low key down on wrestling from like 2010 to 14. I was paying attention, but not as much as I do now. It'd go in cycles, 6 months on, 6 months off, 6 months on. I was more into sports. The Niners were doing well. The Giants were doing well. I was kind of covering all aspects of sports, but movies was the thing I was really into. I was reading a lot of Grantland at the time. And then in 2013, I discovered podcasts because I'm finally able to listen to them. I have an iPhone now, so I can listen to podcasts and listen to a lot of Bill Simmons finally after reading his articles, the podcasts that Grantland had to offer. Like, do you like Prince movies? The Hollywood Perspectives, Girls and Hoodies. So like, I'm discovering more as I'm reading and looking up directors. Like I would always just look up movies and all that. But 2013 was a big year because here are the movies I saw. Again, these are going to be just movies in the theater. So it also kind of showed the taste I have or developed
at 18.
At 18 and then going forward too.
Mm-hmm.
So the first movie I saw was Iron Man 3.
Oof.
Which, again, I said I saw, the first Iron Man with my dad, his stepfather at the time, and my brother. Loved it. It was amazing. I remember watching the Iron Man cartoon as a kid, the one that came out in the 90s. That was dope. I was hyped for Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
I didn't see that in the theater. At the time, we had a good bootleg man, so I was able to get a copy not shortly after it being in theaters.
That's your local bootleg man. I'm sorry.
And to be honest, that's how I saw a lot of movies. If my mom wasn't renting them, we had a great bootleg man. He would sell them at a good price, especially bundles of them too. That's
these were VHS or DVDs?
No, DVDs. Yeah. So we had I think I had Inception, The Town, a few other like kind of big name movies at the time. And they were always good quality. The first time I saw the Avengers was but it was a cam. But it was probably the greatest cam version of the Avengers you could see.
You felt like you were in the Battle of New York?
No, but it was like, oh, this isn't bad for a cam. Because sometimes he'd give us one and he'd be like, I'm sorry, this is the only quality I have. And it'd just be like dog shit. You can't, the sound's bad, the camera angle's bad, that, you can hear the person shifting it up to not get caught. But
been there.
But Iron Man 2, I was looking forward to it because it was introducing War Machine. It showed the briefcase suit in the trailer, and that I remembered from the cartoon. I was just hyped for it. And that famously is a messy production.
Yeah.
And how they brought in Justin Theroux, who co-wrote Tropic Thunder, and it was kind of brought in by Robert Downey Jr. to fix this movie that he thought was kind of getting away from Jon Favreau. But I enjoy it. It's not the best.
Not the best.
Definitely better than Thor: Love and Thunder, Thor: The Dark World. It's better than, out of the crappiest MC movies. It's
better than the shitty Thor movies.
But Iron Man 3, they were it's the first post Avengers movie was the big deal. How are they going to build after the Battle of New York, like you said? And the trailer was shown during the Super Bowl that year, which was Niners Ravens. I don't want to talk about that right now. And it hyped up Tony Stark's losing it a bit. This one was famously written and co-written and directed by Shane Black, who we talked about previously. Weeks about the Predator movie he had done, but famously Lethal Weapon, The Last Boy Scout, big guy in the 80s and 90s in terms of script writing, and then Bang Bang, one of my favorite movies. And it has probably one of the worst mid twists, which is the Mandarin's not the Mandarin, which then I think has affected how I viewed this movie. There is some good stuff in it. Again, the Shane Blackness of it's set during Christmas. He has a kid sidekick. Robert Downey Jr. is doing more stuff out of the suit than in the suit. At the time, I liked it a lot. But rewatching it, I've grown less fond of it in terms of the hierarchy of the MCU and its rankings and all that. It's still, not bad, but that Mandarin twist and then them bringing that back in Shang-Chi really pissed me off too. That was one of two things I disliked about Shang-Chi was.
But that was also kind of to
they had to double down.
But they also kind of retconned a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They
owning up he then brings him in to be his court jester.
Oh yeah. I would assume that Asian Americans who were pissed off about that aspect about Iron Man 3 would have felt vindicated with that being specifically in the film. It was directed by an Asian American man. It was, the first it was very Chinese actor. They really went in on everything. So I think they did that to
they had to right that wrong. And what's even worse is after they know it's the fake Mandarin, my Guy Pearce, then owns up that he's like, I am the Mandarin. So it's like,
whatever.
But shout out to Guy Pearce. Should have been a bigger star.
Shout out to Memento.
He's good in this 5-minute trailer for Prometheus, even though he's only in like 3 minutes of Prometheus. But he fucking delivers this great monologue about fire in this Prometheus ad. Guy Pearce, again, just a guy who never had if I remember, I think it was it Sean Fantasy once who had said, had Chris Nolan stuck with him as his muse, imagine Guy Pearce as Batman in the Nolan films.
Facts.
Instead of shifting over to Christian Bale. That would have been interesting. And there's other aspects of Iron Man 3, co-written by Drew Pearce, and I liked it at the time. There was a great sequence at the end of all the suits, which they just sold a shit ton of toys by making a shit ton of suits, which was kind of like the end game of that movie, I guess. But
right.
But it was that thing.
In the first 20 minutes of this episode, we referenced Adam Pearce, Guy Pearce. I'm writing that down.
Well, you know that Drew Pearce is the man who is writing the Fall Guy script, which David Leitch is directing and Ryan Gosling is starring in. So to bring it back to, there are no Ryan Gosling movies in this cycle of films.
There's your Ryan Gosling reference.
There's the ding 20 minutes in, as you were saying. So the next movie, and this movie again was shown during the Super Bowl trailer. I saw Iron Man 3 by myself. My dad would drop me off, pick me up. More often, he'd be like, "How was it?" I'd be like, "It was great," because that was just my initial reaction.
Right.
For a lot of movies,
I loved it,
especially for this next movie, which is Fast and Furious 6. I am like one of the lone defenders of like, this fucking movie is great. Primarily set in London. This is the one where The Rock teams up with them.
Oh god, yeah. I don't watch this movie that much.
This is where Luke Evans is the villain. And then at the end, they reveal that Jason Statham is his brother, which was a great post-credit scene and had me fucking hyped.
They have this one on TV. They show this one on TV a lot, though.
This one's on TV very often. FX, yeah. This one gets a lot of play. This has the longest runway in cinema at the end when the plane is trying to take off and they continue to shoot down the engines. But most importantly, it has the flip car, which is like this F1 style car that puts like a little shield barrier thing up, and other cars ride up it like a ramp and they flip over it, and that's how the villains get away with their heists and crime and all that. They bring back Michelle Rodriguez after they said she had died in Fast and Furious 4, but at the end of Fast 5, Ava Mendes, the Mrs. Ryan Gosling, says that she's alive. She tells that to Dwayne Johnson's character. But again, famously, this is what pairs Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel on the same side after he's the man sent to hunt them down and bring him in. He needs their help. I always like the movie when they face like their evil twins. I said this before. There's a scene where they detail like it's the evil versions of us. Mission Impossible 2 has this, which is why I like Mission Impossible 2. GoldenEye is basically the same thing. He fights 006, who's now evil. I always like that trope of like this. In Power Rangers, again, another Power Ranger reference. It's called the Psycho Rangers. It's like the evil version of the Power Rangers, basically. I always like that. The MCU did it for a lot. Like Ant-Man fights Yellow Jacket, who's evil Ant-Man. Killmonger is basically evil Black Panther when he has the leopard cheetah type suit. You know that they were doing that again. Iron Man 2, he fought Whiplash when he's in like an Iron Man Whiplash suit. It was
So the first when MCU first came out, it was introducing the characters. At some point, it became the characters fighting evil versions of themselves. Then
without even realizing it. And no, I don't mean low key pun intended, but like
100%. I'm with you.
Low key was Thor. So,
but now it's how do the heroes deal with alternate versions of themselves? Let alone whether it's like a woman,
actual alternate versions,
or they're like Middle Eastern. Or there's another one. Fuck, it's like somebody's sister, or like it's just some other like little girl that starts shooting arrows, and now she's Hawkeye too. Like it's always something. It's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Comics, that's how they're written. Yeah, reincarnations, or I mean,
it's funny to see it in all the shit. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Once you think about it, once you actually look into it, yeah, like holy shit, like
it's interesting to see what they're doing with that type of stuff. They just need to tell some good stories. But anyway,
but Fast and Furious again. That's a real like he dropped me off with like rolling his eyes, picked me up. I was just giddy, like it was awesome, like it was amazing.
Yeah.
Like I said, they set up Furious 7 with Jason Statham being the villain, which like I said, the transporter's the bad guy. He's the one who killed Han, but as F9 showed, that didn't happen, which is the reason I was pissed about that movie. We'll get to that in episode part 3 of this series. That's further down the line. But yeah, no, I just loved it in the theater at the time. And it's been one of my favorites. So when Banks and I at the BVD pod, Banks versus Davis on YouTube did Fast Summer last year. Mm-hmm. I had this at number 4 in my rankings, which I think people would have it a lot lower, but I like the London setting. It's also just very European in its setting. This is the last one that Gal Gadot's in before she becomes Wonder Woman.
Damn, that's right. Is this the one where they put the rat on somebody's stomach and then they eat the stomach?
No, that's number 2. That's Too Fast, Too Furious.
I'm sorry. That's the other one that goes on. That's on TV a lot that I watch.
Yes, it is. Gina Carano's in this, and look at her now.
She's in Fast 6.
Yeah, she works with The Rock, but then the plot twist is she works for the villain secretly.
What was the name of this film? Was it
Fast and Furious? They say it's Fast 6, but it was advertised as Fast and Furious 6. But when the credits start, it says Fast 6.
Yeah, because the naming convention of these movies, they kind of just name them whatever they want to name them, and it's funny. It's funny, like there's Fast and Furious, and there's also the Fast and the Furious.
Well, Fast and Furious is them soft rebooting, because rebooting at the time was the thing in late 2000s.
Right.
So them taking the out of Fast and Furious was them saying like, hey, because it's the first one that Paul Walker and Vin Diesel had done in 7 years. Because Vin Diesel didn't do the sequel, and Paul Walker wasn't in the third one, but Vin Diesel shows up at the end. And that's why it's just Fast and Furious. And then we know it today is like it was F9.
Right.
The fast saga is what they call it. This is when Vin Diesel really gets in. This is when Vin Diesel really gets into his artsy fartsy, like I'm a storyteller, like bullshit that he's been doing for the last 6 years.
Fast saga. That's a new name they're doing. That's crazy.
Again, saw this one by myself. The next movie I had to see twice, and I was really hyped for this movie, and that's Man of Steel.
You saw that by yourself?
Nope, I saw that with my grandmother. So my grandma wanted, she was gonna drop me up and say, "I'll see you with you." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I don't care." Like, this is Black Irish Big Mike. That's my grandma. But before the finals, set piece, the big action climax of Zod versus Superman, a thunderstorm knocked out the power in the theater. Mm. So we didn't get to see it. So we went up because again they evacuated the building basically. And they're like, anyone who's seen a movie gets a refund. So we went a second time to go see it just to see the final 20 minutes. I think I had already maybe known about the infamous neck snapping where Superman kills Zod. I think I might have been aware, even though I don't know if at that time I was like trying to avoid spoilers as much as I would later on. But now it's kind of like, if it's a movie I'm not anticipating, I really don't care if it's spoiled too much. But I was excited for this movie because it was going to be a Superman movie. I did see the last previous Superman movie with my father and my brother, which was Superman Returns. That's the one with Kevin Spacey, directed by Bryan Singer. We saw that in the theater, and that movie is boring. But my dad likes it. He likes that Khal Penn is in it, and he's a bad guy. and that they shank Superman with kryptonite, basically. But that movie is
pokey.
That movie is trash. Just like I watched it, I think before seeing this with my youngest stepbrother, because he was super into superheroes at that time, and he was about 4. And watching it with him, I was like, man, this movie wants to put me to sleep. And again, there's no action. He like catches a plane, that's it. But Man of Steel is like the opposite. Finally, like, oh, Man of Steel, like he's fucking punching people and shit. Like finally, like he's kicking ass, because like Superman just like gets his ass kicked, or like I'm gonna catch a building real quick, or very generic, which is why my dad always says he's the worst superhero, besides the fact that nothing can hurt him except a rock, a glowing green rock. But
Right.
I think at the time I was a Snyder head. I thought 300 was cool. Obviously, the slow motion and all that. I did think Watchmen was good. I think from what I had seen of it, the extended one is like a little too long, but I get what he was going for. Like the serious superhero movies, what he wanted to make.
Oh, wait, how much of a Snyder head are you?
Not anymore. I was at that time like a Snyder because I thought the Sucker Punch, which is an extremely problematic movie.
I was that was the movie I was going to ask about. Okay,
I remember the trailer. I was like, "Holy shit, what is this?" Then I watched it. I'm like, "This movie's fucking deranged." And the action, the whole like the 3 action sequences are great. Of like them in like World War II world.
Yeah, the rockets and shit and the bombs in the air. It looked ill. That's
why I'm like, whoa. And again, it was bad. I guess like the real like fetishizing of like young women in these tight outfits, and it was almost like in hindsight, it's like, did Joss Whedon make this movie? No, Zack Snyder did it.
That was definitely Zack Snyder, yeah. But no, shouts out to Vanessa Hudgens. The thing is,
it was the cast of like the young up and coming women, Jenna Malone, Abby Cornish.
They had to literally.
Chung, who Matt had told the story once about. Remember? real ones know if they remember that. He said the girl from the real world.
But I think like you figure it. They had to kind of do double. They had to do all that action. There were like music, dance sequences or whatever, and then all this really dark fucking asylum type shit, lobotomy.
It's
a lot
early
going
Oscar
on.
Isaac.
Yeah, about talk
John Hamm on the rise because he's in Mad Men and he's doing small parts. My girl Carla Gugino, she was in it.
Shouts to her. Shouts to Carla.
All timer.
No facts. That's that you like this movie?
I like the action of it. The whole movie as a whole, no. And then when he would say, I had this idea about a woman dancing, and then the dancing was a way for her to escape into this dream world. I'm like, okay. But this movie's still like about predators and, again, lobotomies.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It was a movie I enjoyed watching just for the action bit, and I haven't watched it in years.
No.
So Man of Steel comes out. In between, he had done the movie about the fucking owls. The animated movies where the owls fight. I didn't see that, and that movie had.
Wait. He did Legend of the Guardians, Owls of Khal?
Yeah.
I took my son to see this film.
No, really?
I mean, he had seen. The first film I ever took him to see was Lion King in 3D, and he was so young. He didn't care about having glasses on while watching the movie, but the movie was all fucking scrambled, so he was pissed off the entire time. This may have been a 3D movie as well, but he was used to it. And
I think it was. I think this was at the time the hype of like everything has to be 3D.
He rocked with it, but I think he got more into what was the shit with Toothless? What was the name? What was the How to Train Your Dragon? That type of shit.
I've never seen any of those.
He got into. He was like prime age when those came out. I took
early 2010s. Yeah, it was that. Yeah,
I didn't realize Legend of the Guardians, the Owls of Khal was a Zack Snyder film.
The only thing I know about that movie, I watched an episode of 30 Rock. I didn't watch the show weekly, but I tuned in because Matt Damon was on that week. And it was like a weird thing, like Matt Damon on a TV show, like it's one of the biggest actors in the world. And he's a pilot that dates Tina Fey's character, and they're like the plane won't take off for he's like stopping the plane from like he's being like a real like Ahab type, mutiny figure. And he's like, I don't care how many times these people have to watch Legends of the Guardians, the Owl of Khal. They will sit here and watch, and then like he quotes like the movie's playing, and like he's mouthing the dialogue. Yeah, it's like because he's a pilot, so he's heard it so many times. It's why he's almost again like this Captain Kurtz figure from Apocalypse Now. It's just like he's gone mad. So I have never seen it, but the trailer had the 30 Seconds to Mars song "King and Queens," which just is hilarious because Jared Leto is the lead singer of that band, and it's like a great like movie trailer, like popular song. It's an owl flying in the rain, like set to Jared Leto singing. It's just like up here, like what the fuck were you thinking when you greenlit this? No wonder Warner is bought by Discovery right now. Like, you put yourselves in this situation a decade later.
Movie sucked.
But Man of Steel, it was, again, Nolan's movies had just ended.
Right.
And then they had saw what the Avengers had done. Avengers and The Dark Knight Rises are in the same year. One's taking off, one's ending. So DC gets where, like, you know what? They had already kind of greenlit a Superman movie anyway, but there was still a small chance that, like, this can be linked to Chris Nolan's Batman. The next year, they cast, well, no, later in 2013, they cast Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne and say, now we'll be starting our own version of a connected universe and all that. But Man of Steel, I actually am a big Man of Steel fan. I still think it's actually the best DCEU film.
Wow.
Aquaman will probably be second, or Wonder Woman third. Oh no, you know what? The Suicide Squad's probably
the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, you know, that's actually probably number one now that I think about it. Yeah.
Suicide Squad's probably up there. Yeah.
But I liked Man of Steel. I thought the opening's great, which was very Star Trek 2009, where a father has to save his son off the planet that's going to explode. Hits me every time. My guy Kevin Costner is great in it as Jonathan Kent. And this is what kind of introduced me to Henry Cavill. And then, unfortunately, he's been Superman, but he would go on to have two great movies with Man from U.N.C.L.E. Sleeper hit. I didn't see that in theaters in 2015, unfortunately. And he kills it in Mission Impossible Fallout as the villain.
Fighting in his fucking bathroom.
But yeah, so my grandma and I saw this movie twice. I actually own this movie on iTunes. I bought it later in the year with iTunes gift cards.
Every time you get a new phone or Apple device, Man of Steel just pops up in your iTunes.
Yep.
You watch it?
You want to know what the other two movies I own are?
Yes.
When we get to 2015, I'll reveal them.
Damn. Okay. I can't wait.
That's how I'm good at this shit. Like,
look at that.
And the final movie of 2013 that I saw, Big Mike and I went to see this. The Wolverine.
This was the sequel?
The one in Japan. Yes.
Right.
Because Big Mike's a big X-Men fan. We watched the first X-Men a lot. It was on VHS at the time, and we had it. I think we went to see X2 in the theater and X-Men: The Last Stand in the theater too. Again, he would drag us to the superhero movies. I was kind of like the mom, like, you can go take them to see that stuff, because he was a comics guy too. He was a fan of superheroes and all that.
Right. Let him
especially around this time, not as much lately.
I can see that.
But and again, I think he liked the X-Men a lot because of the wide range of characters they had, and Wolverine being one of them. Again, he was one of the big guys who's like, Glenn Danzig would have been a great Wolverine because he fucking looked like Wolverine, and Glenn Danzig is the lead singer of the Misfits. And all that. But he grew to like Hugh Jackman, and that's why he's like, no one else can play Wolverine. Now that Marvel's trying to do, he's like, you got to top what Hugh Jackman did. And this is actually an underrated.
It is underrated.
This is the first one that James Mangold did, and then he went on to do Logan, which killed it. But yeah, him in Japan. It's one of the famous arcs of the story. Him and the Silver Samurai. I mean, they made the Silver Samurai a transformer at the end, but I mean, it's cool.
Right.
The only part I say I disliked is when he has like the bone claws at the end. But that's because they cut out the animating. But it was a movie at the time where I'm like, to me, the X-Men movies they hadn't gone full like, this is worrisome yet.
Right.
X-Men: The Last Stand is like that wasn't really good. I hadn't seen First Class until I had moved here and watched it constantly on FX. I'm like, holy shit, this movie's fucking great. And to me, that's the best X-Men movie.
I was there. I like X2 as well, but I always liked First Class.
For people, it's either First Class, X2, or the first X-Men.
Yeah.
I think Days of Future Past is extremely overrated. I didn't see that in 2014 because I'm like, I'm not looking forward to this.
I still gotta watch the road cut.
And plus, Bryan Singer came back, so I was like, nah. He took that shit from Matthew Vaughn. I wasn't happy about that.
Oh, I thought you were talking about him messing around.
Well, no, that stuff hadn't come out yet until after.
You think him and Kevin Spacey hung out on some of them nights?
Yeah, that's why they did Usual Suspects, and that's why he cast him as Lex Luthor. Yeah, there was something going on there. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a comeback together, and like they've been trying to tell us something for years, and
it'll be on the Daily Wire's
and let's not forget, like, and the guy in the forgotten guy of the Usual Suspects is Chris McQuarrie, who's working with Tom Cruise and making Mission Impossible movies. He won the Oscar for writing that movie, and he's the one who he had no career until Tom Cruise said, "Here, you're going to be my go-to guy."
Sit on this side of the spaceship. We're going to go to Xenu, and I'm going to tell you about what we're doing next.
But that was 2013. So like I said, I've seen all these movies at the same theater, which is the Marcus Theater, Parkwood 18, in Wade Park, which is the next town over from me.
That's a chain.
Marcus Theaters is the chain. Yeah, I think it's maybe more Midwest based. I'm not entirely sure.
Marcus Theaters.
In California, it
has ads for like Marcus Theaters.
Yeah.
Marcus Theaters. Like Marcus is just like some black guy. Marcus Theaters.
No, there's a guy who always comes on. His name is Greg Marcus. He's this balding white guy who comes on and be like, "I thank you for coming to the movies." And he's like, he has these horrible ads. It's like, oh god.
Marcus, you don't have an AMC out there?
The AMC isn't near me, is the thing. No.
Okay. Marcus Theaters. You learn something new every day, huh? Anyway, I'm sorry.
There's not an AMC, and the IMAX is like super far away because I almost thought about driving to the IMAX to see. It might have been BVS.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. So yeah, and this was 2013. So I mainly just like I'm going to high school. I had to refinish my junior year because I had to catch up by skipping because I skipped school at the end of my junior year and started senior in California. So I had to get caught up there. So not much of my life has really happened aside from I'm going to school, watching movies, just watching a lot of stuff in general. 2014 comes. This was senior year. I'd start working in the summer. I worked mainly all the summer and then in the schools. And in the fall, started a technical community college. But of course, I would go to the movies. But this is also where I have a laptop. I was given a laptop, I think, was it my birthday in 2014 or no, it had to be 2013. But so I discovered like Putlocker, movies.com, all that stuff. Like, so if I wasn't going to the movies, I was watching new movies at home.
You're at least seeing movies.
But the movies I did see in the theater. So here again are the 5 movies I saw. So again, the theme: Captain America, The Winter Soldier.
Oh, I did not see that in theaters.
I did, and and again, my dad had to drop me off, pick me up. No license yet. And I'm like, oh, it's amazing. I saw Captain America: The First Avenger in theaters, and I'm like, wow, that was awesome. Like I had no expectations for that at all.
Right.
I saw that in a theater in Los Angeles when I was visiting my grandma that summer.
Okay.
Next day, we saw the 3rd Transformers movie, which is underrated as well. The Dark Side of the Moon, or Dark of the Moon. When we were visiting her, she worked during the day, and me and my brother went to go see those movies. But the Winter Soldier, which is obviously, it's either in people's top 5 or top 2 MCU films. And I remember when it was able to record on like DVR, I recorded it right away because like, oh, I got to see this movie again. But yeah, in the theater, it lived up to the hype. I was almost going to see it. My family took a trip to here we have the Mall of America here. You're aware in Minnesota. We also have this hotel connected to what they call the Water Park of America. It's this hotel that also doubles as a water park. Okay. So it has these 2 giant slides and a good like indoor swimming pool, lazy river, indoor surfboard type.
That's some lazy rivers, yo. Lazy rivers are hard.
So my family, we for spring break that year, this is my senior year of high school, we went to Water Park of America, and I was almost going to go see Winter Soldier in the movie theater that they have in Mall of America. Word. But I decided not to. Instead, I waited till we got back and just saw it at the theater myself. And I said, phenomenal. At the same time, too, the Raid 2 had come out. And I remember listening to Prince movies, and they had said like the action in The Winter Soldier is great and everyone's praising it. But you got to go see the Raid 2. And I had seen the previous Raid. I had recorded it after like watching the trailer one day and then recorded on DVR. I'm like, holy fuck. And I'm like, I should have seen the Raid 2 as well. But that was at the time I wasn't really sure. Like, I think I did have a decent amount of money, we can borrow money from my parents to see a few movies, but it wasn't until like I said, after summer 2014 where I worked all summer to have my own money, and then 2015 starts and I'm going to school and then working nights. I have my own source of income, so I can see whatever I want. But Next up is a movie I was anticipating so much because it's my favorite comic book character of all time. And the build had been so like good, but then the end result was like, oh, and that's the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oof. I never watched. I've still not seen that movie.
Really?
I the first time I saw it was on a plane, and I fell asleep, and I woke up, and there was a bunch of shit going on, and Jamie Foxx was an Electric Man. I said, "What the fuck is this?" And I went back to sleep, and I know the Gwen Stacy shit was at the end. I may have woken up when that was going on,
So
but
you understood that payoff in No Way Home that he has to catch Zendaya. Yeah.
Again, like you said earlier, I'm at this point in my life. If I need to get to a certain end for a film, I'll spoil myself. I'll go read Wikipedia or watch a video on YouTube that's explaining things or whatever. Like I'll probably sit down and watch it at some point. I plan on going through all the movies at some point, but I tried before No Way Home and I turned it off again. I just can't get into it.
The first Amazing Spider-Man?
No.
See, I'm the opposite. I remember when it was announced, I'm like, they're doing Spider-Man again already, and it was again. I didn't know who Andrew Garfield was at the time. I hadn't put together that he was the guy in The Social Network yet.
Right.
However, had Emma Stone, and I had still do have a huge crush on Emma Stone.
She's one of the reasons I watch.
And then they said it was directed by the guy who did 500 Days of Summer. So I'm like, they got a rom-com guy to do it. But then then when the trailer came out, it was just all POV of him slinging.
That was cool.
I'm like, yeah, but I ain't falling for this. This is when I started to think I'm like understanding movies a little bit. Again, this is 2011. I remember seeing that for the first time, again, staying at my grandma's that summer. This is when the Summer of Punk's happening, but I'm not as tuned into wrestling as much. So I missed the Summer of Punk, and I'm like, again, I'm like, wrestling, new Spider-Man movie,
What were you doing?
I was just again mainly into sports, and I wasn't into and I was pissed that they were doing Spider-Man again. Is what it was like redoing. I understood what reboots were at that time, so I just like a new Spider-Man. But then again, we got a great copy from the bootleg man, and I was like, and I watched it. I was like, holy shit, this movie's actually like really good. I was a little bit, but it took multiple rewatchings to understand that. I wasn't like that right away. Him being a skater, I was like, all right, because that was the thing at the time. You like guys skated. Again, I grew up the son of a skateboarder. I tried skating. Like Matt said, like I didn't like falling, so I stopped.
Right.
Damn. But the chemistry that him and the rom-com aspect of it is what drew to me. Like I enjoyed it as a rom-com, but then rewatching over the years, I'm like, it also has some really great action set pieces. And Mark Webb, like I said, also directed a shit ton of music videos. Hasn't really done much since, but he did this, and like they upped it. Unfortunately, this movie is just a disaster of them trying to build for the future, and that being the snake that's eating its own tail with like
a good movie, and then see if you can do better.
Sinister Six. They teased out with like the Rhino at the start. Jamie Foxx's Electro. They introduced Dane DeHaan, who's Harry Osborn, and Chris Cooper is Harry Osborn, and he dies right away. I mean, I'm Norman Osborn, and he dies right away. So. And like the Green Goblin is a disease. It's not like a thing.
No.
But it was, and you know what exposes that is like it's co-written. Well, there's a shit ton of writers, which is how you know it's a disaster a lot of times in movies. But it's Kurtzman and Orci, which is Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, who did a lot of work with J.J. Abrams. They did the Transformers films, and they did like the Star Trek films. They did this show Fringe. So their style of screenwriting is it's very sloppy and like trying to connect this to that. I think they were great for that era, but I think their window was very small in terms of like how good they were. They did Mission Impossible 3, which is my favorite Mission Impossible.
There you go.
And they did the first Transformers, which is the best Transformers movie. But their style, like weird, over the top comedy with this surreal, like corporations are evil. It just like it didn't work again. Like making Oscorp the villain made sense in terms of like Oscorp would then spawn all the Sinister Six because it showed that there were like vulture wings in one room. There were I think Dr. Octopus arms in another one. There they had a whole tease like Easter eggs of like the Sinister Six will come from Oscorp. It'll be Oscorp based, but the movie just is bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, Andrew Garfield has great hair in the movie. I tried to copy that look for like 4 years.
There were people that
work.
It was funny to see when Spider-Man No Way Home came out and people kind of like revisiting his Spider-Man.
He was always good was the thing. He had one good movie and one terrible movie.
That second movie was shit. I was not the biggest fan of the first film, but
what Jamie Foxx is doing is this is Oscar winner Jamie Foxx. He hasn't fully phoned it in yet. Because he later on has stuff like Baby Driver where he's great in, but this is also I think where Jamie Foxx is starting to get to that point where he's proven himself. He's going to cash some checks.
He's a little old, yeah. Get that money. Be a Black Electro. Anyway.
And the like when Electro shoots, it's dubstep. I think they sold the soundtrack to like it's Pharrell teaming up with Skrillex, I think, or someone else. But it was I think Akiva Goldsman, who's just like a name people should stay away from in Hollywood. Was playing a part in the storytelling as well in the script writing, but like and again it killed the franchise, and we got Tom Holland, who's the best Spider-Man. So that's what we should at least we can thank them for that.
Is he the best?
To me, yeah. You still gonna stand by Tobey Maguire?
Not me. I personally prefer, but before I parted ways. Not of my own accord, of my previous employer. We ran,
right?
Huh? Yeah, we ran.
We did something about this. Yeah,
we did a best Spider-Man ranking, and I think because the streets were saying Toby, especially after No Way Home or No Home.
It's nostalgia. I think is what it is.
Big nostalgia, but like he's got at least 2 bangers. Like, say what you will about his first Spider-Man's a good film. That second Spider-Man film that he did was fucking hard. You could put that on right now with Dr. Octopus.
I know. It's mainly on the shoulders of Alfred Molina, who's great.
You're not wrong.
I can't stand Kirsten Dunst. Never could.
I don't prefer. I'm not a fan of any of the Mary Janes I've seen in films. Honestly, I don't think they've really nailed that character.
Well, the secret thing about Amazing Spider-Man 2 is they were supposed to introduce Mary Jane, but all her scenes were cut, and they had Shailene Woodley as Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they were supposed to start this whole what's her name? In Rogue One.
Oh, the British lady?
Daisy Jones. No, that's the other girl. Felicity Jones. There we go.
Felicity Jones.
What? No, because she plays Felicia Hardy. Yeah, it's Felicity. Yeah, she plays Felicia Hardy, who goes on to be Black Cat. She works at Oscorp with Harry Osborn.
See, I think if they had made that Spider-Man old, because a lot of the things that I remember from the characters you're mentioning are older themes. Like Spider-Man and Black Cat were fucking the shit out of each other because.
Well, he graduates high school and after the opening scene.
And he just starts fucking.
Amazing Spider-Man set like him in high school, which again the thing about the first Spider-Man, like he graduates halfway through that movie and is about to go to college.
I forgot about that. What a terrible film.
But because the whole point of Amazing Spider-Man 2, he's trying to figure out also like the death of his parents. Very like spy movie type feel. It was just them doing way too much. It was them cramming all these ideas and it didn't work, and it still doesn't. Next movie, I couldn't believe how good this movie was, given all the things going into it. I didn't know who any of the characters were. That's Guardians of the Galaxy. That first one.
Good one. That's a good one. It's a good theater film.
Yeah, and then me and my family saw it together. I saw it on my own. Got in a car accident the day I was going to go see it. I was at that time I'm trying to get my permit.
Oh shit!
So I was driving my grandma's car, so I could drive myself at least, and then she would just come back up. I can use her car and drive back home. I'm trying to get into this lane, and it's heavy traffic day for some reason in the summer, and this car just doesn't see that I'm trying to go over and just rams in the back of us. Their car's fucked up. My grandma had like a Jeep that had like the reinforced rear end, so this car's hood was pushed the fuck up. But yeah, I saw it, and again, it was like the guy from Parks and Rec. I was barely even watching at that point, but again, like I knew who Chris Pratt was. Zoe Saldana I had seen, in The Losers, a few other things. Bradley Cooper's voicing a talking raccoon. Vin Diesel's voicing the talking tree. And famously, again, for us wrestling fans, world heavyweight champion Batista is in this movie and was fucking great in it. I couldn't believe how great he was. And I haven't really seen two movies he done previously, which is a small indie film, House of the Rising Sun, which is very bad.
Right.
And he was in the movie we talked about last week, The Man of the Iron Fist, directed by RZA, in which he plays a brass body, and that movie's pretty bad. I rented that movie in 2013 at home. The movie I rented at home too in 2013 was Only God Forgives, starring Ryan Gosling. I asked my dad, like, hey, can I rent a movie? Him and my stepmom went to the casino that night, and I'm like, hey, can I rent a movie? They're like, sure. And I rented Only God Forgives, and like halfway through, I'm like, this is not the movie I thought it would be. Why is he not kicking ass in Thailand? Like, thinking I hadn't fully understood like what Nicholas Winding Refn was offering, which I take part in going forward.
Right.
But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, I thought it was, and still do, the best Star Wars movie ever made. It really is, in my opinion.
It's a good film. Really good film.
But in between going to see Guardians of the Galaxy the second time, I said with my whole family, my dad, my stepmom, my two stepbrothers.
Right.
My Mima, who's my stepmom's mother, that's what we call her, I was going to take my youngest stepbrother to go see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot. And I said, yeah, I'll tag along. Why not? And yeah, that movie's, yeah. Megan Fox is April O'Neil.
No disrespect to Megan Fox. I mean,
Will Arnett. It's just like, what the fuck were you thinking? Again, this is a whole thing too, where that Shredder was supposed to be a white guy there during the making of the film to combat backlash. Like they fixed it during post, so like there's not really even a Shredder.
What?
William Fichtner was supposed to be Shredder. People caught wind of that, and they tried to write him out as being Shredder instead of being someone that works for Shredder. Like
after already shooting it.
Yeah, or like as they were finished shooting it. What's Johnny Knoxville is the voice of Leonardo, and that's a weird choice. It's just the whole thing's a shit show. And this was a movie produced by Michael Bay, so it's
Leonardo.
Yeah, and he's doing like a weird. It's not even him doing the "I'm Johnny Knoxville, welcome." It's not even that. It's just like him trying to be serious, but like, I know you're Johnny Knoxville.
You're fucking Johnny Knoxville, bro. Get out of here.
But yeah, that was so again, like in 2014, I graduate high school, start of the summer, work all summer, got my permit, and just going to see movies. Not much is happening. Like go to community college. I did have a girlfriend briefly at the end of high school. So at the prom. All right, so I was forced to go to senior prom because my parents were like, if you, like, even though you don't have a date, just go. You'll regret it if you don't go. I went with some friends of mine. I was basically the third wheel. However, there was a single girl at our table. I knew she was going to be there because the friends I went with, they were dating. And the girl said, this girl at our table, she doesn't have a date either. You should probably ask her to dance forever and all that. And I'm like, I'm not sure. And then the guy said she has big boobs. And I'm like, okay. So we kind of had, again, a good rapport at the table. Just when everyone else got up to go like do their couples pictures, we were just sitting there talking and all that. I don't know what it is. Sometimes I think this isn't a flex, but women will just vibe with me at like a setting like that.
I can see that.
I guess it is the fact. I'm not saying I'm a charming guy or I'm a funny guy or anything like that, but it happened in 2020 at a 4th of July party. When we do the 3 movies I saw in 2020, I'll tell that story because that's a pretty good story too. But it's a thing too, where, like when they like get to just talk to me, it's like someone's gone up with this guy. But when she was leaving, I got up. I did the movie thing where I ran after to be like, "What's your number? Can I get it?"
Jesus.
And I got it. And then we dated for like a few weeks, and then I ended up seeing her like the first day of because she was a senior too at Technical Community College after she had dumped me 4 months prior, and that fucking sucked. Yeah. So but then that much. So come 2015, and this is the year. This is when I'm going to the movie. Like this is the shit I'm passionate about. Like going forward, like my life will be like. So I'm going to school, working nights, and the day before my 20th birthday, I got my license. So, and I got it in the winter. After I failed the first driver's test, this was the second driver's test. I passed that, but I felt like I barely passed it. the first test, the woman was strict as fuck. With the second test, the guy was so laid back. I think it's just like, here you go. So I got my driver's license the day before I turned 20. However, I can't. So, because I think, let me see. Because again, here are the tickets, folks. The Wolverine ticket, Amazing Spider-Man 2 ticket. I guess this is where it comes into me being very sentimental. I had a right to remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles C, because it was fading so much after holding on to it. I think I kind of get this aspect from my mom about like holding on to stuff like that. See Guardians of the Galaxy.
He's scrapbooking, man.
I don't know if I'll do like a scrapbook. I think Fast and Furious 6. I would put these in my wallet right after seeing them would be the thing, and just like just put them here. Like I'm not gonna throw them away. Man of Steel, Iron Man 3. Because going forward, I'll be a member of Fandango, and I'll just have digital receipts. Soldier, and so all right, I did. So the first movie I saw in 2015 was Kingsman. About 2 weeks after getting my license. So I'm driving myself to the movies finally.
Well, for Kingsman?
Yeah, I was hyped for Kingsman. I bought the comic for Kingsman. No idea when I saw the trailer, I'm like, what is this? And it was like by the guy who did Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class. I'm like, I like those movies. Right. And it's like a spy movie. Like the action looked good. So I had like the Kingsman graphic novel. And I went and saw it, and I was like blown away. Had no idea what to expect. And then the whole church scene, which is the famous moment from the first one. There's some weird stuff with like Sam Jackson doing a lisp for no reason, really. But you know, he's an actor. People want to try some stuff. I was shocked that Colin Firth was playing an action star when my mom was had a huge crush on Colin Firth from like Bridget Jones, Pride and Prejudice, Love Actually. I'm like, this guy is like, seeing this guy shoot people.
You weren't prepared.
Not at all. It was one of those weird things where like what action can do to people in terms of like, and the unorthodox action star. Bob Odenkirk was like this for Nobody a couple years ago.
Sure.
People see him on Better Call Saul where he's like this.
He should great. Nobody. He does really good in Nobody. Really good in.
And then Furious 7.
The Fate of the Furious, or that's 8?
No, that's number 8. Furious 7. That's not so. Fall of 2014. Paul Walker passes away in his tragic car accident.
Sure.
I remember we were putting up Christmas decorations when I found out. I was like, I'm like, Paul Walker's dead, and my dad's like, what? I'm like, he just died in like a car accident. I was like, I think it was a few days after Thanksgiving too, because like I said, we were still on Christmas decorations. Couldn't believe it. Because they were, I don't know, was it 2013? Because they were trying to do Furious 7 in 2014. They were trying to do back-to-back years. I think it was 2013 when he died. Because then they pushed Furious 7 back another year to finish the rest of the film. They had a lot of his stuff filmed.
His final film role, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that and like Brick Mansions, the remake of the French action film.
Wikipedia says it was
it came out after, but like he had filmed, but again, only because they had to reshoot.
But right, in 2013, I'm sorry, principal photography started September that year, and then it was suspended in November after his death, and they resumed filming the following year and ended that summer.
Yeah, like so they wanted to do back-to-back years, like what they'll do with Mission Impossible next year, where next year there's part 1, the year after that's part 2.
Right.
But yeah, Furious. This one was directed by James Wan. He did the Saw, Insidious.
Crazy.
What's the other franchise? Conjuring. I hadn't seen any of those. I did see Saw, but I'm not a big horror guy. But the action in this movie is fucking insane. This is why I said a few weeks ago when we talked about action directors in regards to The Gray Man. And I said the movie he did last year that you should watch, Malignant, has some great action in it, which is weird for a horror movie. But again, it's a slasher, so he just adds like a slasher, knowing kung fu, but not really in a weird way. But I was blown away by that. Again, this is where they fight Jason Statham, and also this is where the friction starts with Dwayne Johnson and the rest of the crew. Mainly Tyrese at first, then the next one is when it moves on to him and Vin Diesel. But the famous Charlie Puth Wiz Khalifa song is played at the end for Paul Walker. It's a great send off of him and his character, and really emotional. Like leaving the theater. I left that theater driving like a madman. I was so hyped. I'm driving a Ford like Expedition. I'm the small guy driving this big ass car, trying to go as fast as I can.
That's not what they want to hear, by the way, Drip. They do not want to hear that you were driving like a bat out of hell after seeing Furious 7.
That's just how I drive, though, too, to be honest.
Don't worry, Universal. Sorry.
Women, I'm saying for even though I've sworn off women for a little bit, women should be cautious when they get in the car with me, is what it is. I think I've said this to them, that everyone says I'm a bad driver, and they're like, oh, okay.
When do you say this to them? It's just like, all right, you buckled in? All right, just so you know, I'm crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, once this car starts, you might be like, I'm not going to do like the death proof for like, to be safe, you got to sit in my seat. Like,
right.
I'm not going that far, but everyone tells me once they get in the car with me that I'm a bad driver, and I'm like, okay.
Drip, I don't know where you're at. This probably isn't the right place to ask this question, but fuck it. If it's too much, I'll cut it out. Whenever you have your next situation, you gonna bring them.
Situation?
Well, whenever you have another, lady friend, girlfriend,
low key. I think you guys are cursed.
What you mean?
Guys, the three of y'all at the time talked to the woman I was dating off air after she bought me the Drake.
I remember that. The witch.
She wasn't a witch.
I thought she was a witch.
She gave witch vibes.
I thought she was a real witch.
No.
I'm sorry. I don't remember her name. I only remember that one day. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No. She gave that vibe in a positive way, I'm saying.
I know.
That's the thing. Because we had said something about Liv Morgan. You said Liv Morgan's a witch, and I had said, ain't no problem. And then Pam said, we can tell based on who I was with at the time. And then you were like, and then you were like, yeah, I meant to ask you about that. What's going on there? And I was like,
she was a witch. It was, again, I think it was her aesthetic. I think,
she works at Hot Topic, yes. And, as an emo goth girl, yeah. But which is, I guess, one of the three things I'm into. Banks would say I'm into another thing, but that might have to be off air.
Yeah, not that on air.
And then the second woman, I put on the Summer Jam Scream when we were on our date, and then that
wasn't my fault. I was not expecting that. Because
what I'm saying is,
So what you're saying is,
I shouldn't meet. But now the four of y'all.
Well, this is the thing, because
you did say we have to have a woman on the pod at some point to talk about me.
But the thing is I don't want to, like, you also have to know how to separate. Like, you don't want to, especially early on, you don't want to bring someone who may not be ready to have their relationship with somebody.
Someone meet Matt Damon, I agree.
I'm not even talking about Matt. I'm talking about the chat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, sometimes those worlds collide.
This last one, I thought this would have been able to handle it, given how she was a listener of the other show I did.
I mean, I don't know what happened, but
yeah, I already had to do some therapy on today's Banks versus Davis, which is back, by the way.
Officially.
Yeah.
Patreon news.
Yeah, I signed myself back up for. I don't. Again, like I said, this, I'm a masochist. Like, I don't know any better.
So that was what, like a month off?
Basically 2 months. Let's not forget. I took the month off from recording in general. Then we took a whole month off after it announced. So it was basically 2 months. We had a summer. We had a summer vacation. Basically,
you took a summer vacation from BVD, and now
even though
I'm not mad at that.
I'm mad, but it's Bam's fault. It's a lot of people's fault. Bam saying we ended prematurely made me think, fuck, he's right.
No, I think
you agreed, but you didn't want to say anything. I know.
Well, no, the thing, I don't want to step in the way of what some like the decisions people make in their own time. But when you mentioned that, it's something you tweeted or you said to me or said to us that the numbers on that last episode were higher.
It was always. It pisses me off still. People wanted to hear T. There was no T. People thought we had a Jesus and Mero. Like
that's the problem, though.
I talk to this man every day. Like
they thought something was there that wasn't there, and the real is,
he wanted to record the next week after. I'm like, we just wrapped up, and I don't have Wi-Fi. But he's like, I just watched The Gray Man. We got to talk about it. I'm like, I talked about The Gray Man, but I would still talk about it. I'm just saying, like, if I didn't have Wi-Fi, if I had Wi-Fi that weekend, we probably still would have potted it. I would like, let's hold off on this and release it. But this is why I'm cursed to this life of potting. I guess
I'll say this: I'm glad I didn't take the BVD pod links out of the Black Wrestling.
Yeah. However, I did shut down the RSS feed, but we're going to be YouTube mainly anyway. So
I mean, yeah, I don't know what the audio numbers were, but I'm assuming the
after you had pointed out about that, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, and plus everyone likes watching more than hearing anyway. The funny thing is, I can still tell when an episode. We'll get back to this movie stuff in a sec. I can tell when an episode of Black Wrestling's really good based off of SoundCloud numbers. Still, it not to say that some episodes aren't up to par, but you can tell when people are really into a conversation that week, and it's based off of what the listens are on the SoundCloud. Let alone we know what goes on the YouTube. But overall, if you're like we were doing live recordings for SoundCloud. Once we started messing with StreamYard and realized we can make video, it was about what the video, essentially the podcast we were already making visually that nobody could see, we were able to turn that into something with all these tools. And it changed how I thought about it, because I will always serve the people. There's people that are die hard about the audio for the Black Wrestling Podcast, whether it's Spotify, SoundCloud, whatever. So that will always be an option while I'm around. But you really at this point it's so visual. Yeah,
there's so many
trying to work on something as a way to do audio elsewhere.
But that's why we branch out on the Patreon and do these types of things where it's more just conversation as opposed to the whole show, because people still feed off of that type of content. But anyway,
no, it all plays a factor. And again, the content you're putting out. Banks and I were kind of talking about this for a while in a way of, I mean, whenever you come up with an idea for something, like I said, like, you know, the inspiration for this idea comes from the podcast I listen to, and how are you going to tailor it for yourself? I never really see stuff as biting unless someone will have the same guest you have right after, or do some shit that you basically just did, but then try to remix it, cover art and all that. And, you know, but if you have an idea and then you rework it to your preferences and your style,
make it unique,
something completely different. Yeah. Like I said, for years hearing people talk about movies and all that, I said the theater, and like I said, like the theater experience, I'm kind of detailing where I am in my life at this point. In 2015, I'm saying, like, you know, I'm going to school. I didn't want to go to technical college, but my parents made me, like, if you don't go, you won't ever go.
Right.
My whole thing is like, I just wanted to work and live, basically. Kind of like the life I have now, basically. Where like, but at the time I was going to school to go into mass communications, hopefully, and all that. I was going to the small technical college to get generals done, transfer to the state college, which has a good mass communications program. That never panned out. We'll get to that in 2017. But this is what I'm doing while I'm against. I think I was mainly working Fridays, and then it like one day a week, and then it jumped up to I was working full time during the summer, and then I think I started working weekly. Yeah, in the fall I was working weekly at night because I would listen to Cheap Heat.
Cheap Heat,
which is, I remember vividly the night I heard the first time Greg tells about The Boy Is Mine. I was working at this, I would do janitorial work, and I ran that pod back right after hearing it. It was that good. Like, I had to replay it.
You mentioned that before. I wonder if there's that one image
I have before. I can't remember what in the context of what, but yeah, in 2015, I'm driving now got my own source of income. I'm still living with my parents, but again, I'm only 20, so it's not that big a deal yet. Going to school, no new girlfriend, not much really going on. I don't start trying to blog until the next year. 2016 is when I try to get some blog boy shit going, which will be part 2. But right, so again, Furious 7, like I said, love it. That's to me the second best. Oh no, the third best, because it's first Fast and Furious, Fast 5, and then Furious 7 in my rankings. I can go to Banks versus Davis on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, mainly Spotify. We have Spotify, we have a playlist for all the Fast Summer, which is when we did commentary tracks for all the Fast and Furious movies. And Furious 7. Again,
I wasn't on any of them.
You were on the Fast Summer Go Home show, which is 1 year ago tomorrow. And
really?
Yeah. And that's when we invited 3 people. We invited you on, and you said F9. Oh yeah, it was trash. You came in with like a flamethrower.
That shit was horrible. I went to the theater to see that shit. That was horrible.
You went to the screening, right? Yeah.
Yes. Well, a matter of fact, it was the first screening I went to since theater screening since quarantine. Yeah.
You were like, I just saw it. And I was like, oh my God, I was there. Like, I hated it. I'm like, Cal, that's because you don't appreciate it. And then I saw it. I was like, again, 20. That's for the part 3. That's further down the line. We had Eve on, and Eve was like, y'all like this shit? Like, he's like, y'all did a whole, because Eve listened to the pod. He's like, y'all did 10 straight weeks of this. And then we did Zell, who was listening week by week and syncing them with watching the movie. Shout out to Body More Bottles. That's what my cup is right here. Zell, and we had Zell give us his thoughts on his favorite ones and all that. But yeah, but no, that's a year ago tomorrow, because it'll be on I always keep track of the episodes we do. So if it's worthy to celebrate the anniversary of this episode, I'll always post. But yeah, the Fast Summer Go Home show, Fast Summer wrap up show is what it is. It was a year ago tomorrow.
That's crazy.
But after seeing Furious 7, I went to see Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oof, I saw that in theaters.
I didn't think it was as bad as I do now. I just remember being like, it's a little too jokey compared to how I thought this was going to be super dark, given how the trailer had the vibe of like, holy shit, like the robot's going to kill them.
It's a relatively important film, honestly.
Yeah, it sets up the first mention of Wakanda, introduces Scarlet Witch, who again introduces Quicksilver, kills off Quicksilver.
Just introduce
and opening, grand closing.
Thor with the fucking Aether or whatever is introduced.
Yeah. Oh no, that's at the end. Thanos with the picks up the Infinity Gauntlet. I gotta do this myself. But again, we're like 3 years away from him actually showing up to fuck them up.
Bad film though.
It sends off Hulk. We don't see him for a few years. It's the Hulk versus Hulkbuster.
That's a good. Great. They're really good. It's probably one of the best scenes of the film, honestly.
It shows us that Hawkeye has a family, which I guess we
with
need to know. Linda Cardinelli, Velma.
Fuck Velma. Did you ever see? What's the Netflix that she was on?
Oh, the Netflix show that with Christina Applegate.
Yes,
my stepmom loved that show.
It's a really good show. She's great.
My dad loved her in Freaks and Geeks. Loved Freaks and Geeks, but
I wanted to get.
You said fuck Velma, fuck you. Like I grew up on that movie.
I mean, hey, that's all you.
Shout out to Freddie Prinze Jr.
She's she's great. She's actually a really phenomenal actress. Yeah. Like does everything. Mm-hmm. What the fuck?
And she's not bad as Hawkeye's wife. It's like she's Hawkeye's wife. Like
seeing that's the thing. Like seeing her as Hawkeye's wife, like the 2 or 3 times I saw, I was like, that's dope. But she doesn't do anything.
And at the end of Hawkeye, they tease like she worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. Like probably like as a spy, like he was.
The Netflix show I'm talking about is called Dead to Me.
I'm like, what was the name? And James Marsden, Cyclops was in it. My guy, Scott Summers.
Yeah,
they canceled after what, 2 seasons?
No, don't say canceled. They did the first 2 seasons. There's a 3rd season coming up, but it got delayed because of COVID. Because the second season ended on a cliffhanger. They need to finish it up. And you talk about James Marsden in it. Yeah,
big show for you? big Netflix show for you?
I wouldn't say it's one of the few Netflix shows because of the nature of the show. It's one of the few like easy binge shows that I get.
Even
like
though it's like a dark comedy, right? It's more of a drama.
No, dark comedy is what I want. But the thing is
you know what? Because I've been going through what I've been going through in the last 2 months now, I haven't started Barry season 3 because I know I won't be in a good place to watch a show.
I was thinking Barry, random clips of Hader talking about Barry have come up on my YouTube shorts. I'm like, shit, I need to watch.
Luckily, I've been avoiding everything except people say something about some motorcycle chase, and I'm like, fuck.
I know nothing about. The homies in the one chat, they weren't as big on this season as they were other seasons, but okay. I know next to nothing about season 3 of Barry. Right?
But given how my life was, I'm like, I'm not going to be in this right place.
That's a good binge.
Right place in mind to watch a show about a disturbed man.
I will say
relationship
because I think the season's maybe 8 episodes and they're half-hour episodes.
Yeah, and they're half-hour to 40-minute episodes. I think
you can binge. You can get caught up on that in a day if you wanted to. And
when I have this hernia surgery, I said this earlier with Banks, like I'll probably finally finish Miss Marvel. Maybe finally finish Succession at Insecure.
Where you at in Succession?
I told you I stopped off at like episode 3 or 4 of last season. This is again what I prefer. Yeah.
Speaking true.
Again, this is where I prefer the cinema. It ends, it starts, and then it ends in that time frame you're there. It's not a week by week by week by week by week thing. This is why I always get pissed about TV.
I'm sorry.
I know TV is the great medium of the modern age, but I get fed up about having to wait and then.
I'm sorry, Drip. I'm sorry.
Galactus.
This is how what you're describing is serialized television. Like that's what television is supposed to be. You get part of the story. And then the next week you get the next part. Like if you watch the way soap operas are made and produced, they never stop. Those stories never end. That's television. When Netflix came in, even before Netflix, if you go back and look at Lost is like 6 or 7 seasons. It's like 20 some episodes a season. That's television. It's to get people to buy ad spaces for. That's in between the TV shows to help make the shit you want to watch. But when Netflix came out and they said, hey, we have the ability to make the show and then give you the entire show on Friday, it changed how people, not just how people watch television, but how they wanted to watch television. And when I say that, I mean they don't want to wait unless it's Game of Thrones, Euphoria, or like some other show, they're not really built into waiting for the next week to watch the show. So don't get mad at television because you would rather it be the way Netflix designed.
It's not even the binging thing because I'll wait for a show to binge and like Miss Marvel. So I think maybe it's the way I grew up. So again, a pause. So like I said,
good.
Watching movies with my parents and all that. At my mom's, we didn't have cable. We had antenna TV.
Okay.
So you only really had access to a few channels. At my dad's, that's where I would get caught up on wrestling.
Right.
So maybe that's why I don't care about TV as much.
Yeah.
So like when I'd watch TV with my mom, it'd be a lot of procedural shows, which is why I think I have a fondness for like TV you can just throw on and do other stuff. Shows like Psych, Suits, Justified, Sons of Anarchy, shows like that. There are certain shows I would sit down and watch and over the course. But to me, TV's not always background noise, but like something I'll put on for a little bit and then stop watching. I think I cared more about movies is because again, so much more is put into it, and you know when it starts and when you know when it ends. And
you want the finality of a story.
I think it's just so much, and this is maybe why so something like The Gentleman, we'll get into that on the third part.
Right.
But I'm like, that would have been a good TV show, which they did announce after that they were going to make it into a TV show, but still mum on that. But I'm like, but I also enjoyed the 2 hours of this movie. Yeah, I'd like to know more about Colin Farrell as the coach. I'd like to know more about why Charlie Hunnam's character is the way he is with this OCD type. But I'm glad it started and it ended. It was because it was a fucking great movie.
I kind of like the idea of, instead of making a 2-hour movie, make the 8-episode miniseries.
That's the thing that they say at the end of the rewatchables when they do movies. Like, would this work as a 10-episode Netflix series? And the one I listened to on Friday was The Last Boy Scout, and they're like, would this work? And it's like, realistically, yeah,
Yeah,
because it's a private eye and an ex-football player solving a crime with the corruption of like football and
you can
and
draw
all that.
that out. Yeah, have a lot of fun with it.
But something like The Godfather, it's like, yeah, but then it kind of ruins what The Godfather's supposed to be. But that's why they made it 3 hours.
I don't want a Godfather series. I'm good.
Well, I mean, they made they made the making of The Godfather a series, and neither have I. I know. I think Diz did.
Salute to Diz. Peace to Diz.
Which is why he had to take that Godfather 1 was better than 2, and I was like, no, sir, you are wrong, and you know it.
Godfather 2 is a real. I've not watched either in years. I'd have to go back and rewatch. Godfather 2 is a really good film, a really fucking good film, and I love Godfather 1.
And I think because this just shows again. I'm in this vulnerable state. I said this earlier. Makes state. I'm an emotional guy. I think people probably realize now more than ever, I'm a dark guy in a way. I prefer like the darkness.
Look at this dark guy here.
the darkness of man and man succumbing to like the evil within him.
Yeah,
is the greatest story that you can tell in a way. While you are also like this flawed, tragic hero, like probably the greatest scene ever acted and filmed is the dinner scene at the end of Godfather Part 2, when he tells them I joined the army, and everyone is pissed except Fredo. He's like, "Good for you, Mikey," and Sonny's like, "What are you, stupid? Like, you can get yourself killed." Like, and he walks off in the other room, and then Robert Duvall as Tom is like, "Mike, do you not know what you're doing? Like, the future your father and I had planned out for you." And then Al Pacino was like, "My future that you and him planned."
Right.
And then everyone leaves, and he's just sitting there smoking a cigarette by himself. And it's just an amazing visual of this guy who was supposed to have another life, a life he didn't want. And I think that's always the thing, maybe me personally, about like the things you don't deserve in life, but yet you have them. And the whole Chris Bay had a good tweet about, I think I saved it too. Let me read this. Shout out to Chris Bay, former guest on the show.
Hey, shout out to Chris Bay. Look at his serendipity. I just put this shirt on because I haven't worn this shirt.
I was hoping before, when I went and got my drinks, I'm like walking back from the car, I'm like, watch Cal have the same fucking thing I have on today.
I've actually been going into my white tees.
Like Chris Bay said this on August 17th of this year. The pressure of knowing you could be the greatest of all time. Would you be able to handle it? And I think about that at times, especially with stuff like this, when people say, "Oh, that was a great episode," or "You were good on it." And I always say, I'm my biggest hater, my biggest critic. I don't care what anyone else says. I'm the one who puts the chip on my shoulder and all that. And this is where I think that thing too, where a man who was always like the outsider in his own family, realizing that and becoming this figure that he didn't want to be, which is his father in that way,
right. But
a more cruel version of his father, given how. He slaps his wife when she says she had an abortion, and again he succumbed to, again, he murders his own brother and has to live with that. Is why Part 2 is so good, because again, the failure of what you are supposed to be is probably what resonates so well. This is why Kendall Roy is so good as a character on Succession. Why Jeremy Strong's so great as him.
Thanks.
But again, we got into a strange.
Where are we at? We're in 2015 still. Where are we?
Yeah. Well, Avengers Age of Ultron. Yeah, I mean,
that's where we were.
It has some good action in it, but it's I was disappointed by James Spader as Ultron. Again, just too jokey of a villain. Him being evil robot.
Right.
Them setting up that there's going to be friction between Tony and Cap works, which then is why we get Civil War the next year. But overall, it's definitely the weakest of all the Avengers, of all 4 Avenger films. But
correct.
There was also the chaos on the set. No, the chaos of Joss Whedon losing his mind and Kevin Feige planning for like this movie's next, this movie's next, this movie next, and then again the weird, as we know now, Joss Whedon-ness of like Black Widow and Hulk having a love story for no reason. After they had really teased again in Winter Soldier the great chemistry between Black Widow and Cap, like they should really be the ones that should be going out.
It's weird. It's weird watching that movie back because it was so apparent in Winter Soldier. But
it plays out because Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans are so close in real life by having worked together so many times, basically known each other for I think almost a decade at that point.
And I will say, I think the Black Widow character is kind of built in, like part of her.
Well, that's famously, I think, during that press cycle, I think was it Jeremy Renner who said she's kind of the slut of the team, something very controversial like that. And it was very like, whoa.
I'm saying Black.
No, I know, but this was the thing because it was like Hawkeye and her, but then you realize they're more friends than lovers. The whole stuff with Cap and Black Widow. Don't forget, she's supposed to come on to Tony Stark and Iron Man 2.
But I don't
reveal that he's more into her, but then he realized like she reveals that she works for S.H.I.E.L.D. and then.
But when you watch Avengers, her first scene, she had that little dress on. Like we don't know how she got into that position, but I think
that was a very Joss Whedon thing of
that's how they kind of built the character as being ready to kind of use her sexuality or whatever to entice people to then get into compromising positions that would get information or whatever. But it felt because Winter Soldier was so much her and Cap together on the run, you're automatically attention. So,
but no, I can't really. I couldn't find a second ticket. I thought I had seen it twice, but I saw it again at the end. It ends with
Ultron again.
I wasn't sure if I did or not. Maybe I only have the one ticket, but I went to then see end of the summer. I took my my 2 stepbrothers to go to like your kids are probably gonna like not like a summer school thing, but like a place you can leave your kids during the summer if you have to work.
Yeah.
My stepbrothers went to it's called Kid Stop here.
Kid Stop.
I went and picked them up and we went to go see Ant-Man, which I was hyped for because big Paul Rudd guy, always happy. My mom loved Paul Rudd. She loved him on that show. If you ever watched it, Sisters, that he was on
before, yeah.
And my mom liked Friends, and he was on Friends at the end of it as Phoebe's future, husband, but the man she would go on to marry. But him and Anchorman, him and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Clueless. He's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I saw it twice in theaters when it came out.
Oh my god! Yeah, my mom. That was Clueless is one of the few things my parents could actually agree on. Was Clueless.
Me and my wife love that film. It's a great film, but it's also if you're a man who had
no shame in liking what's considered to be girly stuff, like because Clueless,
it's very much a woman centric story, and her whole thing. It's also very much a modern Shakespeare rendition, but like she's changing clothes. Like it's not about fashion, but when you actually watch the movie and get outside of whatever fuckery you think, like it's very funny, very funny. It's very early. It is of the time frame, but it's also a good story. Like Paul Rudd's hilarious in it.
Yeah, I love Josh. I say that every time I see Paul Rudd.
Donald Faison.
Woman, why you get my pay? Woman, every time you call me woman, let me get $5.
What you jeeping for? What you mean? The link.
So my dad. So no. There are 2 movies that make me think of my parents, like what they were like probably prior to me.
Right.
One is Mallrats. My mom was definitely Shannon Doherty. My dad was definitely Jason Lee.
Shouts to Jersey. That's a Jersey. That's a very Jersey.
Even though they filmed it here.
But I mean, very Jersey mall vibe. That was that film.
But I'm like, that was that. I'm like, if I had a time machine, I guarantee my parents would look exactly like that.
I could see that. I could see Ben Affleck in that.
No, Jason Lee, the guy.
I'm saying that era, like I think your dad's probably shorter than Ben Affleck.
My dad knew Jason Lee a little bit because Jason Lee skated.
Is your dad's probably more of like a Matt Damon height?
My dad's about 5'10", 5'11", yeah.
We're about the same height, but he would be like Matt Damon walking around.
And the other is Clueless. My mom was definitely like a cross between Cher and then when Cher fixes. Ty.
Yeah, Murphy's character.
And my dad was like, my dad was Travis Birkenstock without being the stoner. He was the skater, but my dad never did drugs. So those are like the two relationships I think my parents were prior, because my mom was very like, I had this and that, and but then she like, I'm just like, okay, but yeah, that was one of the few things they could agree on. So
classic.
And I watched that movie a ton. When Banks and I did best 90s movies, that was on my top 10.
Good.
Yeah.
Your parents done brought you up well, Drew.
And him as a superhero, I'm like, Paul Rudd is gonna be a superhero and it was down to him and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and they picked Paul Rudd over Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and this is when they said we're not gonna do Hank Pym as Ant-Man, we're doing Scott Lang as Ant-Man.
Right.
At the time, this is when I'm reading into the background of the comics. Without really reading comics, I always say that I would just look up like the Wikipedia summary of like what this is supposed to be. Especially for the lesser knowns like Guardians of the Galaxy, the Winter Soldier.
No, of course.
And Ant-Man. And this is famously where Edgar Wright, who I love because he did Scott Pilgrim, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, is the director, but then they fire him halfway through, or he leaves due to creative differences, and they bring in Peyton Reed. But then after the movie, once you see the movie, you're like, Edgar Wright definitely made this movie. Like they kept whatever he was making.
Right.
I think really, it's 28 movies now, 20 some movies in the MCU. This is definitely one of the better ones. It was in my top 10 prior to 2020. I think it would probably be on the outside or still within it, because I think it's a great standalone, but also connects well with Falcon showing up and how it ends with him possibly being recruited. But the whole action sequence of like him shrinking down, incredible stuff. Like,
I love that film. It's actually, the film is it's a quick watch. Like it's almost 2 hours, but it feels like an hour 30. Because it's a very fast paced heist film. And
it's a very like 90s type vibe.
When did that movie come out?
It was like August of 2015.
I think the end of that year, 2015, the bootleg must have hit sometime in December. I was trying to watch everything before the end of the year, and I was on a train watching that on the way home on my laptop, and some guy hit me. He was like, "That movie's out?" And I'm like, kind of. He's like, that's something I could put on my Kindle. I'm like, if you could figure it out, yeah. But I was like, why you over my shoulder watching me watch something illegally on my work laptop? Get the hell out of here, buddy. What a film, though.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I even like Corey Stoll, my guy, as the villain, Yellow Jacket. Very like, I'm just the bad guy.
They fucked that sheep up.
Yeah,
they fucked that sheep all the way up. No, that's a good film. I like Evangeline Lilly.
Oh no,
I don't know about her.
July 17th, 2015. So you know what? Because again, like here's what I'm also going to reveal. So like as I'm starting to drive myself, pretty sure I saw King. Not sure what this says for Kingsman. Like I said, I think it's a few weeks after it opened. It might have been. Let me double check. But I'm seeing these movies Friday night, opening weekend. Is the vibe I'm going. This is like the new movie is out. I'm gonna go see it.
You're going that weekend, yeah. I did that sometimes, but not all the time. It depended on when I could take my son to go. If we had son, I wouldn't, because he wouldn't go that Friday night, but I would try and go that weekend if we could. If not, it'd be the following.
Oh no, I see. Yeah, Kingsman came out before I got my license, so I saw it weeks after. So but Furious 7 opening weekend night showing, Avengers opening weekend night showing. Ant-Man was opening weekend, but we saw it during the day. I think it's also like, damn, these kids tickets are expensive, and like the snacks, and like that's one of 3 movies I personally took my stepbrothers to go see. I'll get to the other ones in the next parts.
Word.
There was a superhero movie released in August. I was setting up the next one. That turned out to be one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and that's what they would call Fantastic or Josh Trank's Fantastic Four.
I don't think I've watched that whole way.
With Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Jamie Bell, and Kate Mara.
You were hyped for this?
Okay, two things. When the trailer dropped, I'm like, okay, this looks different.
Right.
I'm like, did Josh Trank want to make Interstellar, but about a Fantastic Four? Because it's a very science vibe. There's a trailer breakdown that him and Simon Kinberg do where he's like, I wanted to do Cronenberg meets superpowers, and all that. This is where, again, Fox is like, they see what the MCU is doing. They see what DC's about to do because BVS hasn't come out yet, but it's been announced.
Right.
They have casted a Wonder Woman, and they're gearing up for the fight for Marvel. And Sony's flopped with the second Spider-Man film, so like, fuck, that Sinister Six movie we had planned, all these other things we had planned, we're gonna have to scrap that. But then those dumb fucks continue to do it because we got 2 Venom movies, a Morbius movie, a Kraven the Hunter movie in the works, and this Madam Spider. No offense to Dakota Johnson and my girl Sydney Sweeney, but no.
Damn, me and Dakota Johnson, do we share his birthday? I think we may. I keep pondering about people I share birthdays with, but hold on one sec. No, her birthday is a week before mine. I'm sorry, keep going.
Really?
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, daughter of Don Johnson.
Shouts out Dakota Johnson. I rock her, even though
I like her. Yeah,
she's a little. No, she's unique. She's very unique, and she don't care.
Yeah, that's the thing with her. When she called out Ellen, that was phenomenal.
But I think the thing is because of who her she parents. Is, and like she, not even her parents. Like she's
the daughter of Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith. That's like
that's the star of royalty. She's a star of 350 Shades films though, and like Hollywood's gonna look at her one way. So if she were to be like, "Yo, y'all are bullshit, and I'm gonna call you out on it," they're gonna look at her, and the headline, the first headline is gonna be like, "What the fuck's wrong with Dakota Johnson?" Even though
if you see her, but she wasn't a star yet, but in The Social Network where she goes one, even though it's not. I did like Justin Timberlake as an actor, but she steals the scene of her and Justin Timberlake when she's like, "You're Sean Parker," and he's like, "I'm an entrepreneur," and she's like, "What was your last preneur?" It's a great scene in a phenomenal movie.
She's dope. I rock with
her. But yeah, no, fantastic. So like I said, Fox is trying to mount up the war against these. They're like, we have the X-Men, we have Fantastic Four. The Deadpool movie was canceled. That footage leaked. They brought it to life. So they're gearing up with that. They're like, all right, now we're going to do Fantastic Four. X-Men Apocalypse is being made. And Bryan Singer, I'll get to that for part 2. That's next week's episode. I made the mistake in 2016 of seeing one Fox superhero movie and not seeing the other.
Oof.
I just
really. Really?
We'll get into that next week. Unless you want to do all these episodes, right? Unless you want to go 7 hours.
At some point, we got to do something. But that's crazy. We'll have that conversation because 2016, I was active that year. But
I was too. But yeah, so Fantastic Four. I liked the first one. I think I saw that with my uncle and my cousin and my brother.
Right.
And I think I can't remember if I saw the second one. Maybe I saw that with my mom. Weirdly enough, but fantastic. The first 2 Fantastic Four movies directed by Tim Story. Underrated, forgotten thing is that a black man directed the first 2 Fantastic Four films. A thing that like never really gets talked about.
I never hear people talk about that at all.
But shouts to him. The Fantastic Four movies is why my dad doesn't like Chris Evans as Captain America because he sees him as the Human Torch.
That makes sense.
And we'll always see him as the Human Torch.
That makes sense. But
I'm like, yeah, I like that Fantastic Four by growing up on those movies. And again, it's a good young cast. Well, yeah, I'm all in. But I'm like this. At the time, I was listening to Kevin Smith's podcast, which was at that time called Fat Man on Batman, in which he covered all the anyone who had anything to do with Batman. And this whole time, he had a great a few episodes where they did commentary to the Burton films and the Schumacher films with Mark Bernardin. But prior to Fantastic Four coming out, he had Josh Trank on. And Josh Trank, if people don't know, did Chronicle, which fucking fire. That was a movie I remember seeing the trailer for, and we rented the DVD of it. I'm like, this is amazing. It was one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
If I ever do a list of like superhero movies that have nothing to do with Marvel DC,
Right,
that's on there. Like a top 10 list of the best one, that's on there.
the writer of that film, it's a problem with Chronicle though. But that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah, I mean,
And oddly enough, he's done like some really interesting stuff with pro wrestling. But
that's you and I can't do an episode about Max Landis, but like to say I'd liked his work at the time before all that stuff came out.
A lot of people did. No, a lot of people were. He was. Well, that's the problem with some of these creatives. They'll be really shitty people, but they'll also be really tapped in. Because like the Triple H video that he did, I have no problem telling him, go watch that video. If you're a fan of
the women accuse him of that stuff are in that video.
And I mean, I do feel because there's a number. There were a couple. I'd heard stories about him, but when the stories came
famously, he's the son of John Landis. But no,
the guy that directed
Thriller and American Werewolf in London, fucking great horror film.
Legend,
Animal House, I mean all that, or wrote Animal. Did one either? Josh Trank details like it was a 4-part series, and the 2 parts he kind of detail. The first part he just kind of details his upbringing. The second part he kind of details, I think, what it was like to make Chronicle. He's like, I had known Max for a little bit. I had this idea, and he came and wrote the full screenplay. I wrote the basic story. He wrote the whole screenplay, and that's how we got Chronicle. And, we cast these 3 young and up and coming actors: Dane DeHaan, Michael B. Jordan, who I remember when Chronicle was coming. I'm like, isn't that the guy from Hardball? Like, isn't that the one G Baby killed?
Yeah, the one that sold out his homies on Hardball.
Vince Staples had a great tweet. I think when Creed came out, I was like, I'll never forgive Michael B. for killing G Baby for being responsible for G Baby.
It was him. That's a damn
and Alex Russell. He's like, and then part 3, he details like, I originally wanted to do an X-Men film, but Fox said, no, we have Bryan Singer's coming back to do X-Men from Matthew Vaughn. What about the Fantastic Four? And he had said, like, I wasn't really into Fantastic Four as much, but I was like, you know what? I'd like to do that.
Sorry.
And he wanted Margot Robbie for Sue Storm. He didn't get her. He got Kmart. There's like a whole bunch of like they clash on the set.
Margot Robbie as Sue Storm would have been interesting.
And this is right after Wolf of Wall Street, before she's Harley Quinn was the thing.
Yeah, he was hitting her at the right time. He's going at the exact right time. But
there was already stuff on the set where like he had erratic behavior. The other thing about this, and people have forgotten this the whole time about this movie, it's co-written by Jeremy Slater. And I said this right after episode 2 of Moon Knight came out, and everyone's like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, look who developed this show. Jeremy Slater. You know what else Jeremy Slater did? Fantastic Four 2015. If you look at the stats, they'll show you what to expect. Right. And he also wrote last year's Mortal Kombat. No, he'll be writing the sequel to Mortal Kombat.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, so now you know that movie's definitely going to be trash, and it's harder to top the trashness that was the Mortal Kombat movie we got last year.
Well, this one has to be important because it's supposed to be the Johnny Cage movie.
Oh, don't get me started on that. Thankfully, I only saw that. We're not going to count 2021, the movies I saw on HBO Max, instead of going to the theater to see them, but I wouldn't have paid to go see Mortal Kombat anyway. But
I didn't pay, but I definitely went to a screening of Mortal Kombat.
But so in part 3, and they were doing these episodes right before the release of Fantastic Four, him and Kevin Smith. Mm-hmm. So the 4th and final episode was opening. No, it was after opening weekend. Part 3 was ramping up the movie coming out, and he's telling like, I'm excited to do this and that, and we took more from the Ultimate series than the original, which is why they're a younger cast and all that. And then opening weekend comes, this movie gets savaged by the critics. Mm-hmm. They say it's one of the worst movies of all time. I had listened to Do You Like Prince movies at that time, and they compared it to Heaven's Gate, and I'm like, what's Heaven's Gate? And I looked up, it's one of the most famous flops in Hollywood history. That Michael Cimino's big follow-up to Deer Hunter, his Autornus getting the best of him, a movie that had to be cut so many times and all that. They never did part 4. Kevin Smith came back the week after and said, If you're expecting a part 4 with Josh Trank, that won't be today's episode. Even though he did text me and said, what if we did an episode and just didn't acknowledge the movie?
Right.
And then we didn't hear from Josh Trank until 2020 when his Al Capone movie came out.
He should have done the podcast.
But yeah, this movie is bad. I rewatched this movie. The woman I've seen, we had a virtual date and we watched this movie, and because she had never seen it, I'm like, you gotta watch it. It's so bad. Because she's a comics fan, so I rewatched this rather recent. There were probably 2 movies I should have seen that year around that time instead of that would have been Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. But unfortunately, I was stupid and didn't see that. But I did see another spy movie, 2015 low-key great spy movie year, Kingsman. The Melissa McCarthy movie Spy, which is very good.
I never watched, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, you should. I highly recommend it. Got a lot of play on HBO that year for me. Man from U.N.C.L.E., Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, and Spectre, the first James Bond movie I ever saw.
I watched that on a cruise ship. No, that's no bullshit.
I think you did. I think you did tell that story on the pod. It's about the time you went on a cruise or whatever.
100%. Watched it all day, all night. That was a great film, actually.
You know what? I'm like, when I left, I'm like, well, that certainly wasn't Skyfall. But I'm like,
no.
but I'm like, but I actually Casino Royale is the best Daniel Craig one, so I'm the one to talk.
Hey, that's your hill to die on. It's fine.
But I'm also like, there's some good action in it. Shout out to Batista.
Wait, was Spectre? Skyfall may have been the one I saw on the cruise.
Are you confused? Spectre's the one where
Skyfall, they have the rats. Were there rats? There was like
what's with you and remembering you?
I remember
movies that have rats.
Rat shit is weird.
Rats freak me out, so I get it. I
don't think I saw Spectre on the cruise. I think it was Skyfall. Skyfall's a better film than Spectre, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 that Sam Mendes did. Skyfall was first, and then he did Spectre. Spectre is the one where there's no Judi Dench.
It was definitely Skyfall then. Okay. It was definitely Skyfall.
Because they bring in Ray Fiennes to then replace her at the end of
Right. Skyfall. Yeah, I don't think I saw Spectre. You mentioned Batista. I don't know if I watched that whole film.
Yeah, no. Well, Batista is like the great casting as the evil henchman in Spectre.
Yeah.
Decent action. This is when James Bond. I mean, when Daniel Craig was saying I'm going to be done with James Bond, I think this is the press cycle of this movie. Is like, I'd rather slit my wrists and play James Bond again. Fast forward 6 years later, I actually go see No Time to Die, but that's part 3. Like Spectre, it's when they were fully trying to make James Bond Batman, Chris Nolan's Batman to be exact. Great action sequences. It's so grounded and gritty. Has some moments, but not as good. Like I said, definitely not as good as better than Quantum of Solace, the one that came out in between Casino Royale. But again, it's not hard to be better than a movie that was fucked up by the writer's strike. So,
right.
And then a movie that's going to be divisive between you and I probably for the rest of our lives. This is when I really start getting into following film, paying attention to directors. A movie called Sicario. Denis Villeneuve, who I'm like, who? I don't think I had seen Prisoners at that time.
Probably not.
Which is one of my favorite movies.
Watch Prisoners and then watch.
Great Jake Gyllenhaal performance as Detective Loki in Prisoners.
What was this movie about? So Emily Blunt is a.
I'm on like Film Tumblr at this time, and I'm following like pages and it's like Sicario movie about the war on drugs and the border and
a lot of border stuff.
Not really drugs as much as the war against the cartel on the border. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And it's like Benicio del Toro. I'm like, I really don't like Benicio del Toro. Still don't, but he's great in this movie. Josh Brolin. I'm like, Josh Brolin. I like Josh Brolin. And Emily Blunt. I'm like, Emily Blunt as an action star. Well, like, I didn't see Edge of Tomorrow in the theater, but I did end up seeing it. Again, she's great in that. And I'm like, and again, a big part of me seeing this too was they were hyping it up on the Hollywood Perspectives podcast, and Chris Ryan was like, Sicario.
Yeah.
And I went to see it and I was like blown away. This is when I'm really starting getting into like film bro shit, like perfect shots and cinematography, because Roger Deakins shot this film and Denis Villeneuve directed it. There's a Jan Johansson who has passed away. Great score by him.
What's the perfect shot in this film?
The one that gets used a lot is the because this is Roger Deakins' go-to is like figures and in shadow, like the outline like of the soldiers walking as the sun's setting. But the real probably perfect it has the great sequence on the bridge when they're trying to make it across after kidnapping the cartel guy.
Right.
And the gangsters are in one car. They move back around, and there's like a great shootout on the bridge that they spent days building.
It was there's a shootout like in Mexico too, right? When they're like
that's what I'm talking about.
That's on a bridge.
Yeah,
that's the only scene I really like in that film.
Early Daniel Kaluuya performance as Emily Blunt's partner. But the only thing is his name is Reggie Wayne.
Wayne.
I'm like the Indianapolis Colts wide receiver. Like, did no one do research? Like,
Reggie Wayne.
And this movie is written by Taylor Sheridan, who I knew after I looked up. I'm like, who is this guy? He was an actor on Sons of Anarchy, and then has now created Yellowstone.
Yeah,
the Yellowstone spinoff, the Jeremy Renner show, Mayor of Kingstown, the upcoming Sly Stallone show where he's like something of Kansas City, where he's like the mobster of the mob boss of Kansas City.
Right.
He did Wind River, which is okay. He did. What was the movie that came out last year for Angelina Jolie? Those Who Wish Me Death, which is terrible.
Sure.
Good performance by my guy John Bernthal as a piece of shit in this movie who tries to kill Emily Blunt because he's a dirty cop.
Yes.
I
guess
the perfect shot in this movie probably would be
something on the bridge.
Realistically, it's probably when it's a vicious scene. Again, when Benicio del Toro has the gun pointed at the main cartel boss after he just shot the guy's two kids and wife at the table when the guy's like, "Oh, your daughter," and he just goes.
That was kind of fucked up.
But
whatever.
And again, it ends with "You're in the land of wolves," and you are not a wolf. But Sicario, great. Again, you and I wait till we get to. I didn't see Arrival in theater. I did 2017. I did see the movie Denis Villeneuve did that year, starring the one and only. But the final movie of 2015 is how we'll wrap up this week. I ended up seeing this movie again 2 more times in 2016, so we'll just cover it now. A small indie film, not much was talked about. Something called The Force Awakens.
I did not see this in theaters.
Really?
God. No. I didn't have enough juice in 2015 to get screened.
Okay.
But my son, I definitely watched it with my son on his he had an Xbox One, and at one point we watched it one afternoon. He loved it. He was a big Star Wars fan.
I prior to The Force Awakens, I rewatched all of them. Episode 1, and I mean Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return, to get prepped. And that's when I was like, the prequels aren't that bad. At least, and Phantom Menace is trash. There is some good, bad stuff in Attack of the Clones. Mainly Hayden Christensen's like emo acting actually fits.
Okay.
And then Revenge, to me it does.
Okay.
And then Revenge of the Sith is again low key like really good when you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also at that point dialed back on the Senate stuff. To me, like A New Hope, I'm like, yeah, it's the template. It's good. I'm like, I think Empire is kind of really overrated, especially everyone hypes it up.
Overrated.
In terms of everyone always hyping it up about
they
how
do
Impact
talk
was.
about it. I mean,
and then Return of the Jedi. I'm like, this one's not really that good at all, to be honest.
You're right about that.
Even though it does have like the Luke Skywalker does a backflip and catches a lightsaber, but like
the
Ewoks are cute. I like them, but yeah, let's not spend too much time in the forest. And
you're right. No, you're right.
But Force Awakens, I know it was like, they just remade A New Hope and blah 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 with better effects. Yeah, so what? I liked it. It works.
As long as you like it, Drip, that's all that matters, honestly.
And the teaser was already divisive the previous year, Thanksgiving, when it showed a black man was a stormtrooper. It's like, shut the fuck up. It's a movie where there are tentacle monsters and a bear-like creature flies a fucking spaceship. Like anything is possible. Like
a black man.
They were. So I'm like, shut up. It was the same thing with Michael B. Jordan. Oh, there was a movie I'm skipping over, but hey, we'll get back to it. I had forgotten it because I don't have the ticket for it. And it'll be a perfect end note. But yeah, Force Awakens. It was the best one of that trilogy. I don't like The Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker is terrible.
Yeah, you're right.
But and out of the films they've done since, it's only been Rogue One, Solo, which we'll get to in the next part. But obviously we've seen how good Star Wars is with The Mandalorian. That's where they have succeeded.
They're getting back to it. It's been a real shitty period for them film wise.
But yeah, Force Awakens.
That started it.
And I think everyone's good in it. Adam Driver, John Boyega. Not really know what John Boyega. Daisy Ridley wasn't known at all until then. I didn't watch Girls, so I didn't know Adam Driver that well.
Me neither.
Oscar Isaac, again, I had seen him a little bit in some stuff. And J.J. Abrams, this is where it showed that he really wanted to be Spielberg, Lucas type, and some good action and some good, like, this is what a Star Wars movie is supposed to be. And then he would then make the worst Star Wars movie of all time.
And then you proceed to make a bad film, yeah.
Yeah. And the final, I had skipped over this because I didn't have the ticket, but I have it on my list. When I saw this, I was like moved emotionally. It was just powerful and stuck with me since. That movie's called Creed, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring again Michael B. Jordan. The man had an up and down 2015. He made Fantastic Four. Months late, almost 6 months, not even August to November. 3 months later, he rebounds with Creed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing, and my dumbass, this is when I judged trailers. We'll get into that a little bit later, the next parts. But like, I saw the trailer for Southpaw, the boxing movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, directed by Antoine Fuqua. Right. I think a few days later, the Creed one came out. I'm like, I think Southpaw will be their better one. I was excited for both.
You saw this, and you were like, "Nah, the other one's going to be better."
I think that was the other time. I'm like, Jake Gyllenhaal's. If it's not Gosling, my guy is Jake Gyllenhaal, who's going to be in Roadhouse, but that's going to turn out to be a disaster.
Yes, it will. You are correct, sir.
Only because Doug Liman is so hit or miss. Even though I like Doug Liman, but he's just very hit or miss.
They do not need to remake.
And they don't. I don't think Jake Gyllenhaal can kick like Patrick Swayze. Like,
no.
No offense.
Why bother?
But no, Creed again. So the other two movies I own on iTunes are Sicario,
of course,
and Creed.
They both, that all makes sense. I can see both of those.
Oh, and it does count, but it says TV series. I own Akira, the dubbed version of Akira, the anime.
I need to. I'll throw that on at any moment and just watch. Have it playing in the background.
Just beautiful. This movie again, like,
how did you think Southpaw was going to be better than this?
The trailer for Southpaw was good, and the trailer for, and you know what? And this is the thing where, like, I had seen the Rocky movies growing up, and it was one of those things like, I really don't care.
Damn.
And you know, and I think I told you this prior. I've never seen Fruitvale because that story just hits too hard because I grew up
right around there.
And I remember seeing that on the news.
Right.
So
100%.
A part of me that could like never watch the fictionalized version of that. That when it was announced that the guy who made Fruitvale Station is making a reboot of Rocky, but it's about Apollo Creed, and I'm like, that's actually an interesting idea. It's like Michael B. Jordan. Like, I like Michael B. Jordan.
He was just in Fantastic Four.
What he had done the awkward moment, which is like a male rom-com that I kind of like, has its moments.
The awkward moment. I'm not up on that. I have to.
It's on HBO Max right now with Zac Efron and Miles Teller. This is when Black friend. Yeah, this is when they're like, dudes can have chick flicks too. Like,
it didn't last.
Not at all.
And then Trump became president.
But I saw this and I was just like blown away. Again, talk about the wonders that Coogler does.
He was really going. He was going in there.
The movie opens up with a wonder of two kids fighting in a juvie, and then when Felicia Rashad shows up and says, "You're just like your father," it's like, "I ain't got no father." And he's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Yeah, you do."
But actually,
and he's like, "Tell me about him." He's like, "He's just like you." And I'm already moved to tears at that point, and then it gets worse. At the end of the movie, when he's knocked out and he gets the flashbacks of Rocky, Felicia Rashad, Tessa Thompson, who I was having a huge crush after seeing that movie. And then he sees the footage of Apollo Creed in his head. I really go like, and then he gets up and I'm like, it moves me to this day. It has like He runs to Meek Mill and fucking
That's the best
motorbikes,
part of the scene. That's best scene in the movie.
throws his bean out and just starts shadow boxing in the
Everybody
fucking
riding around him, yeah.
and it's oh my god, like it's I mean, and again, it's another story about a man wanting greatness, but the burden of it being too much. Like where he's supposed to have this cushy lifestyle, being well off and being this educated guy, but he fights in Mexico because it's all he knows. It's again, what a film! If I had to pick my favorite movie from part one, it's definitely Creed.
Yeah, Creed's probably the best movie.
I've told you before. It's probably still to this day one of my favorite movies of all time, top 5 for sure. And great performance by Stallone, who at that time had just gone full cliche with stuff like The Expendables. He showed up and delivered. He becomes the Mickey figure in that movie.
He took it back. He had to take it back. He had to. Creed needed him. He realized, hey, that's my guy. If I can't honor him while he's still here, I gotta make sure his legacy is right. No, it was a really good film. Really good way to bring back. I appreciate because they already had Rocky lose everybody. He had to fight again in the film before. Like if you're gonna keep the franchise going, this is a good way to introduce and kind of like pass the baton to the next chapter because now Michael B. Jordan is going to be directing. But
since they didn't go the route of Rocky's son becoming a boxer and the cliche route of that.
I know we're on the way to close this episode out soon, Drip, but
I can shout out to Ryan Coogler, Bay Area legend. I mean, and it's not surprising this man would go on to make a top 5 comic book movie.
Facts.
Which we'll get to in part 2.
Part 2 coming next week.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question though, Drip, and it's movie watching related. This September 3rd.
Besides Ant-Man, I saw all these movies by myself. This is me doing going to the movies
at Marcus Theaters.
Yeah. This is because there was a tweet last week where someone's like, if you go to see a movie by yourself, you're a serial killer. And I'm like, you got me. I've seen movies by myself before. I prefer going with people just to have something to talk. Hell, if I watch a new movie at home, I want to make sure that someone else in the house is watching so we can everyone.
No, so Saturday is National Cinema Day. I don't know if it's the first one, but it feels like it. $3 tickets on Saturday at participating theaters. It's also the same weekend that Spider-Man No Way Home, the more stuff version or whatever they're calling it is coming out.
Are you asking if I'm going to go see?
Well, are you going to go out on National Cinema Day to watch a movie in theaters? Probably for $3.
We'll be recording on that. You know what? Actually, we
may not.
No. Here's why: because Clash of the Castles that day.
Oh, it is wrestling weekend, yeah.
And Banks and I are supposed to be recording that day as well.
And then All Out's the next day.
Yeah, and Worlds Collide, which I am somewhat interested in as well. But hang on, let me see what's opening next weekend.
We may need to see about Friday, but I don't know if much is coming out this weekend. But I know the extended version of No Way Home's coming out this weekend. As is, I think at least in my local theaters, they're showing Jaws currently. If you go to nationalcinemaday.org, you can type in your zip code and see if you have any participating theaters in your area. But are you going to go out? Are you going to help reinvigorate the theater community by paying $3 to go see a movie on Saturday?
When we get into part 3, we'll start to get into my thoughts about the cinema community. Next week, Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul, which the trailer looks all right.
Regina
King and my guy Sterling K. Brown.
Not Regina King.
Regina Hall. My bad. I'm so sorry.
Right. Shouts to Regina Hall.
That's the only new movie coming out next week. And there's nothing. What came out this week? Banks and I talked about the George Miller movie, the 3,000 Years of Longing.
That did nothing. That did $4. The Invitation one was doing $7 or whatever.
That movie, or first of all, they incepted that movie from me. A white man who might be a vampire falling for Natalie Emanuel. I created that movie in my head the minute I saw her. Like
when I tell you I knew nothing about this film until it came out, but I'll say this.
it actually doesn't look that bad based off the trailer, to be honest. Like if it was on HBO Max, I would watch it right now.
I think and I'm just saying this because I like going to see the movies. If you're going to go out to see the movies anytime, try and go September 3rd. And I'm only saying that because the theaters are going to be looking for that day to see, because I don't think National
Cinema Day is worth catching on.
They were the one article I read. They said they were thinking about maybe making it an official day. But I think if you like going to see movies in theaters, you don't want theaters to die. You have to at least buy tickets, even if you're not going to go. Support, put some money down. It's $3 fucking. I don't know if I'm going to go out next Saturday to go to the movies, but I may buy some tickets just to say, hey, the shit's out there. But
I can't go out to the movies. I got all this wrestling and TV to catch up on.
That's the other thing. But I was going to say this too, Drip. It's funny because while this episode, we're going to be getting out there, while this episode will premiere probably in the next couple of hours on the Patreon, it's going to drop to the public on National Cinema Day. So it's actually kind of a nice lead into I might have to put some National Cinema Day tags in this thing to catch on to the wave, but that's a me problem, not a you.
The only unfortunate thing to me, based off the amazing Keanu Reeves clip, and I think the great Marty Scorsese would have a lot of problems of what cinema is defined by my list of movies, because a lot of them are the MCU, in which he's a firm opponent against those movies being classified as cinema. He would probably only agree that Creed and Sicario were based off my list, which I can, again, I'm 18, 19, and 20 when I see these movies, which I still see movies like this to this day and probably still will.
Of course you do. I do. I'm an old man, and I'm waiting for Black Panther 2 to come out. We may talk about that on the future episode. You know what I'm saying?
My whole thing too is like, I know, when I saw the trailer for The Northman, I was like, yeah, I'd like to see The Northman. I'm not going to go to the theater to see The Northman. I'll wait until I can. And then it ended up being on Peacock, and the woman I was with, we watched it that weekend when she was here. I'm like, The Northman was pretty good. Yeah,
but it wasn't worth going to cinema, dude.
No, and that's when we get into part 3 of like what's worth going to the movie. At this time, again, I only have some money at the beginning.
Don't tell me too much.
In terms of like this part, in terms of the movies we've covered, it's like my parents are either paying the money I have from working the whole summer, and then 2015 where I'm constantly working and deciding what I can and go see. Like I said, if I want to, I could have gone and see Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, The Man from Uncle, instead of catching them later on, be like, damn, that movie's amazing.
It happens though. Yeah, Fam tweeted the other day
the famous two. One I was like, I'm definitely skipping is Jurassic World, and I love Jurassic World. I think it's the best Jurassic Park movie. That was the movie of the summer, and I was like, dinosaurs, get the fuck out of here. Banks and I talked about this today. And the other movie, again, I mentioned George Miller. Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015, and I didn't see it. I saw that on my fucking laptop, and I was like, damn.
That's a theater film.
Exactly. And I know they have like, if they were going to do the because I know it's called the black and chrome version, which is the movie in black and white. If they were going to put that in theaters, I would maybe go see that.
That would be a good idea.
Because you and I, when we talked about Goodfellas, when the late great Ray Liotta passed, we had talked about movies you've seen, going to go see them in theaters. Like you just mentioned Jaws, where you're like, sometimes they'll still show Goodfellas in the theaters, and I'm like, why would I go see Goodfellas in the theater just to experience it like that? I mean, it's on Netflix right now. I might just throw it on just because.
Yeah, I would.
It on and
I've never seen I would go see Goodfellas in theaters. If they threw it in my local, I'd go see it. And I think that's what's going to happen now. I think you're going to see. Oh,
you mean them putting more old movies in theaters to reinvigorate?
When the theater business is like AMC filed for bankruptcy, Cineworld filed for bankruptcy. There's not a lot of good films coming out right now. Again, Spider-Man: No Way Home was the biggest film of the year already, and now it's coming back to theaters with like 10 minutes more footage. Like there's a reason why they're doing a National Cinema Day. Part of it is to get motherfuckers.
Well, that's because Tom Cruise saved cinema this year with Top Gun Maverick.
On that note, Trip.
When this man You still haven't seen it. You watched Nope last night, then you said Nope was a better rewatch.
Nope. But you know what? I was watching Nope, and the homies were watching Maverick. Okay, it's like the blockbuster of the year, so
And
I have to watch that at
And
some point.
and your stubborn ass was like, I ain't gonna watch that shit.
I didn't care about the first film to care enough about Maverick.
I know, but I'm just
I'm
saying.
gonna watch. I'll probably have to rewatch the original, but I'm gonna watch Maverick at some point.
You actually do have to rewatch yours just because it'll pay off so much. Yeah,
I've not watched that literally in like 30 years.
it was on Netflix right, I think the week or two before it was out. And I rewatched it on there, and then movie of the year.
I'm with it.
But
we got to get out of here.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. So real quick, no Patreon shout outs today. Like I said, we were going to continue to do that, but again, thank you to all the Patreon subscribers or patrons, should say. You know who you are. Real ones, whether you pay the 1 or the 10, regardless, doesn't matter. We'll be back again next week with part 2, which details 2016, 2017, and 2018. A lot happens in my life besides movies. And then again, Black Wrestling every Thursday live on YouTube. National Podcast Day, that's what I looked up, is September 30th this year. I was trying to say that those national days, they don't fucking matter. Like, you try to say National Cinema Day will catch on. There's like every day is a national this day. Wasn't a week or two ago like National Sex Day or something like that or whatever it was? They just throw this shit on Twitter and be like, here you dumb fucks go. Like, what's his name? See. Jack Dorsey is the one coming up with these national whatever days, and
everything has a day. The 30th is a Friday. All right, we'll figure it out.
Well, we could do a Friday Night Live. We haven't done one of those in a while anyway. The last one we did was you, me, Fam, Banks, and Simp.
That was like early this year.
That was when the releases happened.
Like February. That was Dakota Kai and Stokely. Was
Dakota Kai, Stokely, Dexter Loomis, and two of those three are back, and one of those is in the company.
Anyway,
where can people find you, Khal?
At Khal on Twitter, at Black Wrestling, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. BlackWrestling.com is the website. As always, you can find the Black Wrestling Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. Most importantly, it's youtube.com/Black Wrestling. I know we're on Patreon right now, but we're so close to that 1K. If you're not already subscribed, if you have somebody who rocks with us and they say they're not subscribed, just tell them to hit that damn button. If you want more content like this,
I'm trying.
Or anything else, patreon.com/Black Wrestling. You can pay the 1, you can pay the 10, you get content like this. We do White Noise. We try and do White Noise every week. It drops on YouTube a week after we post it. So
I've signed back up for the 3-pod a week lifestyle with BRP, White Noise, and again Banks versus Davis. So I'm like,
there you go.
But real quick,
watch this man kill himself.
What?
I'll say watch this man kill himself doing a podcast. That's what I'm saying.
Something Else Pod is on every Wednesday on BRP's YouTube, like I was saying. So if you like conversations with wrestlers about stuff that doesn't have to do with wrestling, Bam and Lovely LeBeau do that every single Wednesday and have been doing it for the last month and a half. Stay tuned to all the big guests that they'll be having. We won't spoil that. That's for them to showcase to y'all. But again, Thursday, our live is the only live that matters. Our merch is the only merch that matters. You got the pipe down hat on. I don't have mine yet. As of right now on the Patreon, it's still available. The yellow dad hat is gone, but I think by the time people watch this on YouTube, the shop might be closed. You got to talk to the merch man. Hit him up on Matt Damon at Matt Damon on Twitter.
Yeah. I'll say blackwrestling.bigcartel.com. If something's not up there, then it's probably not available.
Exactly, but I have a bookmarked for any future. Again, that way you don't complain like Chris Brown when you miss out on drops. Shout out to Chris Brown. I love Chris Brown. Shout out to Chris Brown.
That's how he started beefing with me. That was exactly what it was.
Because I stood by your side. Like, if you quit crying about missing, then like follow the damn page. Like, you can follow me on Twitter at Davis AK Drip, Instagram Davis Home DC. Thanks versus Davis on YouTube, at the BVD Pod on Twitter. That will kind of hint at what we'll be doing that upcoming week. White Noise episode 10. Thank you all for watching, liking, and all that. Khal and I have done now 10 of them things. 11 and 12, and then I got some ideas to do about to go forward. We got some wrestling based ones to come back with, like I said, some wrestler spotlights and all that. But stay tuned. Again, if you're a fan of me and the way my mind works, or just want to hear some more stuff, I'll be here, I'll be there, I'll be fucking everywhere apparently, because I'm trapped in this podcast life and I ain't getting out.
Lifer. That's what's up. That's what's up. It is what it is.
No,
right.
Oh, appreciate again the intro always. Lord Vader, Sham himself, Anakin Vader, Chocolate City Soul, Volume 2 soon? Question mark.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about that.
And of course, the lovely Chrisanna, Black Announce Table, for the vocals. She contributed to the intro.
Oh, thanks.
We'll see y'all next time. Peace.